and welcome to this, academic AI Startup Symposium of the TTT AI. All of you interested in scaling academic AI startups? Great to see such a diverse group here today of ISO founders. I already spoke to some investors, ecosystem leaders, policymakers. So together we would be able to improve the ecosystem, I would say. My name is Anita Lieverdink. I'm the scale-up lead at the AI Coalition for the Netherlands and was asked for today to be your moderator for the first part of the day. The program we're hosting is called Breaking Barriers. I'm just very curious, who of you has heard of the Breaking Barriers program? Oh, that's nice. Quite a few. Yeah, so that's about scaling AI startups. So this is about, well, making sure we have enough spin-offs from academia. And therefore, Peter and I collaborate a lot to make sure that we have a nice pipeline of new academic AI ventures to help support and grow international. So let's make this interactive from the start, and let's see who you are as a team. Who of you works for academia? That is really a lot. And who of you is founder? And working on it, that's great. And what about the combination, academic founders? Quite a few, good to see, welcome. Investors? And then ecosystem facilitators, yeah, also I see some double hands, very good. Policymakers, also in the room? Oh, you're alone. Well, okay, we will come up with very good ideas and then hand them over to you to make it happen in policy, right? Thank you. Now, a second question. We know who you are, but this is another question. Who of you thinks the Netherlands is right now winning in turning AI research into scalable businesses? That's what I mean, yeah. We have work to do. We have work to do today. AI is developing in a tremendous pace. About a year ago, you could ask AI to write you a plan. At the moment, it can also execute the plan end to end. So we need to, all of us, we need to keep up with that pace. And also as a country, the Netherlands, we need to keep up. And the good things we're hear about that today as well, I hope, is that we have world-class AI research. So we have the talent, we have strong universities, we have ambitious founders increasingly, and we have many AI reports. But one question keeps coming back. Is that enough? And are we good enough in making sure these AI researchers turn into value, into economic value, into societal value? So how are we at transferring that AI knowledge? Well, because, well, of course, we all know talent and ambition is not enough. And I believe, and we'll talk about that today as well, we might lack a bit of sense of urgency. So hopefully today, well, this first part is more over presentations, but the second part of this afternoon is a roundtable with different panel discussions, and we would really like to open up the arena to all of you and not just lean back and observe and learn from what is presented, but actively involve, be open, let your voice be heard. What should we do? Raise your hand if you feel something is not right or is lacking. So please, yeah, be involved, because we will be shaping this ecosystem together, and we already are. Today we have an excellent lineup of interesting speakers. So we have Arian van Noord speaking on the developments of AI in the Netherlands. We have Dimitri Jarnikov, who is adding the international perspective on this. Edwin Kuipers, who will be talking about the Dutch AI factory. and Thomas Hannes in backing the startups as a VC of Lumolabs. And we have no one other than our own Max Welling, founder of CASP AI and professor at the University of Amsterdam, who will be sharing his road to success and also the struggles that are there. Arian will be moderating the panel discussions I was just mentioning with entrepreneurs that are here, with investors, and also with the ecosystem and policymakers. As I've said, please raise your hand if you have a question. Be open, challenge assumptions, join us in the discussion, and share your insights as well. And then, without further ado, as they say it so nicely, I would like to introduce Peter Westerhuis on stage. He's been instrumental in bringing this all together, creating this momentum we should really capture because it is slipping. And he's the program manager of TTT AI. I think you are all familiar with him. He plays a key role in the journey from academic knowledge to building enterprises. Thank you for making today possible and for having me here. And let's hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you for this nice introduction, Anita. Welcome everybody, colleagues, partners, founders, investors, and yeah, in the mic. Oh, this is really working. I can hear myself. Everybody sitting here are interested in or involved in academic startups. There are two reasons of organizing this symposium. The first is that the AI developments are developing at a tremendous pace, and currently, as Anita said, there are a lot of organizations developing strategic plans for the Netherlands to stay at the forefront of these developments. And so it is it's a good moment to reflect on the position and the role of the academic startups in these plans, especially since in general the startups are really the key driver for innovation and for economic impact. That's one reason of organizing this, but the other reason is, other reason is that we are, with TTI, we are celebrating the extension of our program with 5 years funded by RVO. And I would also like to take the opportunity to tell a little bit more about our program, since not everybody is that familiar with TTI, I think. TTI is a collaboration of universities representing the majority of AI research in the Netherlands. And with our program, we aim to build more, better and faster AI startups emerging from academic research and to support them with pre-seed investment capital. Basically, what we are doing is collaborating with a consortium and a lot of other academia around, building startups. And we have a pre-seed fund managed by Lumolabs to invest in those very early stage startups in a very vulnerable stage. We started in 2021. Actually, a little bit later. We are now 2026. Old program ends, new program starts with 5 years. Until now, we have processed about 300 plus cases, of which we have about 30 to 60 startups created, a little bit depending how do you define an academic startup. And we have invested in about 12 startups. And you see there +1. That means our new program started a couple of months ago, and our funnel is really developing fast. And the investment, the +1 is an investment in a new program that went through the venture building and received an investment. We're talking about Magicware. Thomas Hannes, his partner at Lumolabs, will tell more about it, I think. The press release was a week ago. It's really interesting startup combining, using AI actually for optimizing quantum computing systems, the qubits. Really a nice, great, interesting startup and really, really deep tech AI. Very brief what we are doing. So we have our venture building activities, business development in close collaboration with the KTOs. We try to strengthen the business cases by sharing IP, technology, expertise, those kind of things. We help the teams building the startups, and that is often just finding the founder to develop the startup. We organize workshops on AI on specific topics, legal, and also on entrepreneurial skills, and that's we do often in combination in collaboration with incubators. And we organize network events like this, but often also with a purpose like investor management, matching events. Last but not least, we have a validation fund, which we can provide promising cases, 25K vouchers, a small amount of money just to do some validation, but also give some qualification, direction, the first investment. We really try to select the best cases with the best scale-up potential. These are the venture building activities. Then we have the pre-seed investment fund that provides more than 250K plus tickets, managed by Lumolabs. And Thomas, Hannes' partner, will tell more about it. He's speaker later on this afternoon. Then we have also defined Pillar 3. That's our the follow-up investments. We try the startups, especially with connecting and collaborating with investors to help them with the fundraising in the follow-up rounds after the first stage. What new is in the new program is that we are now open. The previous program was really closed, was just for the consortium members, but the new program is also open for actually every knowledge institute. We are also more open for other investors, since with our pre-seed fund we just can cover part of our funnel currently. I won't mention them all, but we have developed quite a lot of partners. You see the logos of our consortium partners. We have affiliate partners, basically the rest of the universities, but also 3 University of Applied Sciences, Hogeschool van Amsterdam, Utrecht, and Saxion. You have ecosystem partners where we collaborate in the activities we are doing, like now with ASC4NL, with the top sector ICT. It's called Digital Holland since a couple of months. TechLeap and ROMS. Investors are also an important group for us. We try to split it a little bit with some investors closer and interested to be involved in the venture building activities, but the larger group is just interested in the startups we are creating. We would also like to take the opportunity to thank AI House Prosus for co-hosting this event. It's really great. It's our second event this year. We did an investor matchmaking 2 months ago, I think, beginning of March. Really success with 100 startups and 30 investors. So we are really happy with this collaboration. Thank you all for being here, and I wish you a great and inspiring symposium.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you for this kickoff. And now, indeed, it's not. Is it working? Yeah. Okay. I was saying, to bring an international perspective, we turn to someone who's playing at the forefront of global tech investments. His name is Dimitri Jarnikov. He's Senior Director of Data Science at Prosus, one of the largest tech investors in the world. For those who do not know him, know Prosus. And he's Assistant Professor also at the TU Eindhoven. Welcome, and we would be eager to hear your story.
Wow, I wish I never saw this picture again, but it keeps resurfacing. I don't know why. Thank you very much for invitation, and thank you AI House team for hosting the event. Yes, I lead a part of our data science work at Prosus, and I also teach at Eindhoven University of Technology. So today I'm sitting on two sides of the aisle, representing both industry and academia. And for the next 20 minutes, I want to do two things. So the first one is to set a scene for where AI race actually is through our lens, and also to get to real question behind event on how can Netherlands turn our research into companies that grow here and bring value here. So, but first let me start with people who make this room possible. Oh yeah, I need to click. AI House Amsterdam is a host, and it's worth saying why it exists. So AI House is a home for AI community, and basically we see it as a place to learn, to build, to meet with people who talk and do things similar to yours. And the goal behind it's very simple. It's our inspiration to build Europe's AI talent and to help Europe to lead, not to follow. I think it's worth mentioning that the AI House is a bit more than 1 year old, and we already had more than 80 events with 10,000 people attending events like yourself in person, and some of them online, and we had more than 250 speakers. And AI House is powered by Prosus, so which brings me to who we are and why we have a say in today's topic. So Prosus is one of the largest technology investors and operators outside of US and China. Around 40,000 people, more than 100 companies. We serve 2 billion customers with our product one way or another. For this room, what matters is actually the second line, which is AI for us is not a side project, it's a core. And we spent more than $100 million a year into it. About half of our workforce use our in-house built AI tools every single day in their normal work. And I'm saying this not to impress everyone with the numbers. I'm just saying it because to say that we're running AI at scale across many companies. And there are a couple of things that it taught us. So it all works only if we've got a couple of things together. We've got technology, we've got people, we've got data, real customers, and we can distribute our solutions to many people. So if one of these ingredients is missing, actually using AI, deploying AI, building AI becomes very difficult. And this is kind of a length I try to apply for the remainder of the talk. So landscape. Two things I believe are true. Frontier is concentrated in very few places, and we have a short window to do something about it. So US and China set the pace now. And Europe, well, we have science, we've got talent. This is not a doubt, but we have a bit of less capital and scale. And the door's still open to change it, but I don't think it will stay open for very short. By the way, this is one of my favorite pictures. Those of you who actually are making photos, I suggest you take this one. Why it's my favorite is because, like my team, spent a lot of time working on AI, working with AI, and we've got a bit of feeling like AI is everywhere, and everyone is using it, and everyone basically at the top of the frontier. And the reality is that 8 out of 10 people in the world never used AI product directly. Granted, they can use it as a part of other product, but not directly. And then another 16% basically use free chatbots every now and then. ChatGPT, Claude AI, Grok, something else, right? So if you look at the percentage of people who actually pay directly for AI product, it's less than 1%. And if you look at the number of people who actually build something, on top of using AI, on top of AI, it's a rounding error, right? So I think that this is a very important. It's really clarifying that technology is moving faster than anyone using it, right? So we're basically we're building stuff faster than any time before. Things that took us years now taking us months, but almost nobody has it in their hands, and it's a strange moment, right? Because it is what is possible is far ahead of what is actually used, and it's still early enough that the lead is there for the taking. And I think that it's true for companies, it's actually true for countries. Whoever builds while in this early stage will get significant advantage and will be difficult to catch up. Now the part that it's harder to look at, me being from academia and me actually being from Europe. Let's see where we are with respect to science. This is one of the studies that look at papers accepted to one of the top academic conferences. 4 out of 10 papers coming from China. 3 out of 10 coming from US. 1 out of 20 is coming from Europe. So yes, we pat ourselves on the back. We say, hey, we've got universities here, we've got talent, but the output is increasingly landing somewhere else. And also money tells the same story. 76% of Europe's big AI funding rounds are now led by American investors. And later in the slide, I touch upon why this is a problem. But look, like a couple of years ago, it was half. Now it's 3/4, right? This is a significant change. So essentially what happens is Europe, us, put the company together, and American fund leads around. So if you're looking for a slogan, we build them, they increasingly own them, right? So this is what we see more and more. And actually, the stock market puts a price on the difference. A company in Europe costs half of a similar company in States and China just for being here. So this is one of the problems. None of this is fixed in stone, by the way, but this is like a starting point, and I think that pretending we are not here is actually not helpful. Now, let me bring it home to the Netherlands. As I said, I think we do have ingredients. We've got a deep pool of talent. We've got universities and researchers that are world-class. A startup scene actually alive and growing from where we stand. I would love to hear from startup people if you see it the same way. But I would say that a few countries have a starting point as we do here. What we are lacking is a momentum. So our best people get pulled to other countries, most notably to US. We spend more energy debating AI rules that actually deploy an AI. And we lean on models built by somebody else, run on infrastructure hosted somewhere else. And I think it's important to mention all of this. Look, I want to be fair. It's not a problem of talent or effort. And someone may argue that it's a normal friction of countries that cares about doing technology responsible. But this friction has a cost. And right now, the cost is momentum. The good news is none of these are laws of nature. So it's basically choices that we made or are making, and we can change them. One of the typical objections or pushbacks I've got on the previous slide is, well, the Netherlands is small, right? So our home market is tiny compared to America or China, so surely this is a real problem. And I want to be an optimist. I'm saying, well, I think it's actually quite opposite. A small home market doesn't necessarily need to be disadvantaged. It actually can be an advantage because you need to build for the world on day one, right? So you cannot get comfortable selling only in home because home is not big enough. and you go global immediately. And I just put a couple of examples with granted cherry-picked numbers as an evidence. So by one of the estimates in Israel, 9 out of 10 companies sailing internationally on a year 2, right? If you look at Estonia, they've got 1.3 million people. It's half of population of this province. And they've got 10 companies worth $1 billion or more. If you look at Sweden, it's 40 unicorns, right? So, and Sweden is what, 10 million people, and we are 18. So, small country actually is not necessarily a blocking factor. And by the way, we've got successes. Again, I don't want to say, hey, these are only outside examples. We've got successes. We've got ASML. I'm from Eindhoven, so I see it firsthand. We've got Booking here just across the street. So the guys are actually built from a start to be international, and they actually became world leaders, right? So the lesson is not to protect the home market. The lesson is to go global early. And yeah, small, in my opinion, just not a problem. Here's a loaded slide. So it's basically something that gives me optimism. When I was preparing for event, I was looking through our national plans, investment agendas, and I think I've got a sense that it points more or less in the same way. And this is also the way that I see many people from industry looked at. 3 ideas can come in back. So the first one, do not try to win a race for bigger foundational model. Look, it's United States and China gain at this moment. It's basically cost tens of billions of dollars. And yeah, we're not going to outspend them. I think this could land as a reality. The second is let's win where we're already strong. So sector data nobody else has. AI that runs efficiently on less energy. Infrastructure people can trust. Deep science tied to actual problems and so on. Third, this is a difficult one. I changed this third like 6 times this morning, and the last time 5 minutes before the start of the speech. And I can only say I'm looking forward from our colleague from Growing in AI Factory to help to understand how do we see compute and how do we see helping academia and early stage researchers with compute effectively, I think. So definitely there is a thesis around it. Definitely we see like a shortage and need of support, but I would love to hear a bit more clearly whom do we help and what we're helping them with. So the point I'm making is that market sees the same direction as many of our consortia do, and yeah, I think that we are converging on the good policies. Now, which takes me to the heart of it. So academic spin-offs as a mechanism, they are how science at universities get into companies. They are magnets for talent and something that country can actually own. And look, if we do not do spin-offs, the alternative is that value walks out of the door and grows somewhere else. We need to find a way to capture it. This is where we see how we see the pipeline and where we see pipeline actually breaks. And I think it's very important from our perspective, if you look at the wrong place, you fix the wrong thing. So we do not think, and again, I'd love input from startup people in the room, we do not think it breaks at the start. Founding a company works here. Raising seed money works, getting your first customers work. Actually, if I talk to my venture colleagues, they basically say, look, if there is a real company with a real idea, it will get off the ground in the Netherlands. This part is fine. The break comes at the growth stage. So Series A and B get harder, and real scale, the kind of money that turns good company in a global one, this is where it's hardest, right? So Europe and the Netherlands run thin on late stage capital. So the founders goes to US to raise it. the point I made earlier. And this is a problem because some people say, okay, why is it a problem? The problem is that American money tend to like American companies. Closer to home, easier to govern, which means that slowly the company moves. First goes headquarters, then goes job values, the exit is there. So basically everything drifts across Atlantic. This is why having funds, having support here for growth stage is extremely important. One nuance that matters, and I want to spend next slide also talking about it. So we believe that constraint at later stage capital is constrained, but we also see from our perspective that an early stage, what holding spin-offs back is not money, it's business readiness, right? And let me say a few words about it. So if you go and if you're a spin-off, and what is important is you need to have a change of mode. And I want to be really careful here because I don't want it to sound as a criticism to my academia colleague. But look, if you think about how research is built, right? It's organized around knowledge. And intellectual property quite often sits with university, and you don't have customers. And I think that success means you've got a proof, you've got some result you can show, you've got a paper. How many of us in academia have colleagues and ourselves jumping up and down saying, hey, I published it first. This is the result, the final result. This is very different how companies are built. Companies are built on a product, real customers who pay for it, clear ownership, people actually earning from their investments, believable path to getting better. And basically success means a leader in your market not publishing first, right? And look, these both modes are good, but what we're saying is quite often what we see in spin-offs, they delay this transitional phase and struggle exactly on operational issues rather than on anything else. We do have stories that's a success. I just want to briefly mention, so it's not all gloom. They say, can you please make it a bit enthusiastic? So here's the slide. It's exactly that. So some people are in the room. We've got success with Casino Group spinning out 2 companies. We've got Casp AI with Max Wellen speaking later. So we obviously have a success. What would be important from our perspective is that well, we have a science that produces result, but we want it to be repeatable and we want it to become normal instead of, you know, success story out of luck or perseverance of particular people, right? So we need to have instruments to do that. And another thing that I want to really say, if we have to name one thing that decides the success of spin-offs and in general startups is talent. Everything follows people. And I think right now we are losing them. And it's kind of understandable because when you talk especially to young people, they want to be in a place where they work with the best in the world, and we don't have many frontiers companies here in the Netherlands, right? So you basically want to be next to great people building great product. And yeah, it's basically we need to find a way to give them reason to stay. The second thing is basically we need to make sure that we allow these people to build companies easier, faster, and benefit being rewarded for that. Yeah. Retention, not a luck, it's a choice. This is, again, if you're looking for slogan, this is the one I would like to provide. What companies like ours actually, how a company like ours actually fit into this? So I want to be very specific here. We can be design partner. We can help a young company with real place to test. We basically can offer distribution, and you can, using us, you can reach a lot of customers quickly. We basically can allocate late stage capital, and we believe we understand technology and business to really back it up. So one thing that I want to be honest, if you really early stage, we believe that we can be more distraction than help. So, you know, like we can slow down young team rather than speed up. So generally, we are more involved in the later stage than early stage. If we, because I see the timer here, it's ticking like a bomb. If I want to leave you with, so I leave you with 3 things, not 10. So one, let researchers own upside. If someone builds a company out of their work, they should share properly what it becomes. And we need to make paths from going from lab to company smooth, not years of paperwork. 2, we need to find a way to find the scale, not just a start. We are in Europe, in Netherlands, are very good at the first check, but we need to find a way to back companies all the way here so they don't have to leave to grow. And 3, keep the talent. Give people best reason to stay and build instead of watching them go. Thank you very much. One slide on behalf of AI House, a couple of events to highlight, so you can join us.
Thank you, Dimitri. We have room for one question. Is there somebody that really has an urgent question for Dimitri? Not yet. Okay, well, thank you very much. Wonderful to have you here. Oh, there is a question.
Oh, there was a question.
Hi.
Yes, shall we?
Shall I do that? Oh.
Yes.
So much for your presentation. You said you're with Prosus, you jump in helping startups, not at the early stage. So when exactly can you give us like 3 criteria or 3 achievements that a startup should have for you to step in to help?
Honestly, no. I think that so we basically have different portions of our teams engaged with companies in a different stage. So and every kind of sub-team has their own criteria. And yeah, so probably every team does, but I don't have what is a universal recipe here that I can share.
Oh, just like a VP must be there, right? Or something
again,
like that.
I'm very careful on standing in my lane here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Hopefully you will get there if you have the ambition. Thank you very much, Dimitri, both from your combination of academia and investor. Our next speaker also combines both roles. Arian van Noord, Director of ROM Utrecht region and also Professor at the University of Tilburg. And also, well, engaging in the AI plans of the Netherlands. Please go ahead and share your vision.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for the introduction. Where's Dimitri? Where is he? Still here? Was Dimitri gone? Good story. I think I agree for 80%, not for 20%, but with the drinks we get something. I'll give a presentation on how the Dutch landscape is. Maybe as a professor, I both do sometimes very technical things, so building simple AI kind of models, time series models, and I have researchers doing what's the best moment to ask an investment, what should be your investment strategy, what is the best founding team, how should the founding team look like. I have a couple of PhDs on that as well. And I'm director of ROM in Utrecht, where we invest in a lot of startups. So what I want to tell you, a couple of things I will say about Dutch policies, what's happening in the Netherlands currently. Then quickly look to the international perspective that Dimitri shared with us, more what's happening in the US and what's happening in China, what can we learn from that. Then back to our talent position, what do we actually have to build on. Then I'm looking to the investments in the Netherlands, what is happening in investments in the Netherlands, what kind of investments are we doing. And then currently, in more deep dive, what are the AI investments? In what kind of startups and spin-offs are we investing in the Netherlands? Then going back to what do I think that we should do? And then ending with some recommendations and then probably a top 3. The Dutch policy on this. Oh yeah, and I'd go very fast and you get all the slides. So you don't have to make pictures, you get all the slides. We basically don't have a policy in the Netherlands, an AI policy. We do have a lot of programs running around. This is about that I can find easily, but I know I can make twice this list. This is all worth €1 billion on programs. Typically programs a lot invested by the NGF, the Nederlandse Groeifonds, Dutch Growth Fund. Temporary money, a lot of subsidies, not investments. And then you find some NWO money in there. Then you see some one-offs, like GPTNL that we built, like AI Fabriek Groningen. See them being here as well, getting some funding in there. Then there is some SMEs that get money, about 12 million, and then you get a startup some money. This is basically what's happening. And then you have Basic K, Eddies, there's a longer list. But I would say we don't have a strategy, we have a lot of money, and especially temporary subsidies. We do have people that think about a strategy, and last November we had got 3 documents. I worked on the last 2 of them. The Dutch Nationaal AI Delta Plan. We have, together with InvestNL who's here as well, we present the plan. How should we invest? What are our opportunities? Basically in line, just what Dimitri said, it's not rocket science what we have to do. We know where the opportunities are. And then also the AI Coalitie position paper. So we know what we do, but currently we're waiting for a new plan of a new government to do. It's a little bit empty, silent currently. Then what makes the US successful? It's very easy. Basically, very simple. To be successful in AI, you need a lot of money, point 1. Then you need a lot of data, point 2. Then you need some compute. With the money, you can buy compute. 3 or 4, you need talents. And 5, you need customers. And basically, the big 3 of these are talent, money, and data. And that has been the case for almost over 10 years that I'm in this field. What do the Chinese do then? Now let's go to robotics, part of AI that's now starting to get up. So what is China doing in robotics? First, every city has a big venture capital fund. Typically now about 30 billion, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing, they have all got their venture capital fund, state funded, to invest. Then if you have a robotics company, your interest rate is 0 if you go to a bank. Then, very important, the government is obliged to buy robots. So every robotics company has clients. So that's why in China, on every corner of any street, you will find a policeman replaced by a drone or by a robot connecting the traffic, because these companies, they need to buy robots, mandatory. And that is the public market. Then the private market, they get 90% discount to buy a robot, so you only pay 10%. And why is China doing that? This gives a lot of data. All these robots running around, keeping data working, and that makes the robots better, better, and better, and better. Yeah? And then get free or cheap space for companies. They build these nice communities, these AI houses, but then 20 folds with a lot of money in there. Basically, if you talk about this is robotics, if you would look to the figures on AI, it will be 6-fold as much. So robotics is a part of AI. AI totally is about 6 times. But here we know a little bit how it is distributed. Most of the money go directly to companies. Then a lot of go to venture capital funds. Then some to R&D, to universities. And then some for test beds and infrastructure. So look at these numbers. Here below I set a line. China's about 15 times our economy, so divided by 15, you see roughly what we should do if we want to keep up and play the same game. It's not that I think we should do that, but I think money plays a role if you want to achieve something. So basically the China and the American, they have the same playbook. It's basically make sure you have a lot of money, make sure you have a lot of data, and you have some launching customers. That's basically to build AI unicorns. What do we do as the Netherlands? So looking at the Netherlands, this is our position in 2024. I don't think it's really changed. And where are our weaknesses? Basically, commercialization, and we don't have a strategy. That was the case in 2024 already. This is Tortoise Index. They have this global AI index. They change every 2 years. You can find it on the internet. We do have some good stuffs as well. I agree completely with Dimitri before. And we've got a lot of nice universities. You see them here in the Netherlands, and basically every university in the Netherlands does something with AI. And they have different things that they're good at, a little bit good at. So you see them here. And then you can see your favorite university. Maybe you're not in the top 5, but this is roughly the top 5 in the Netherlands. Maybe you disagree a little bit on it, but this is where we are from a university level. Going back to investments, because I think if you want really to do something with AI, you need to pour money in there. Because from money you get talent, you get data, you can do everything. So it begins with money. So looking at this investment in the Netherlands, how are we investing? It's a little bit what Dimitri said. If you look at the data here, you see on seed capital, roughly the amount of seed, the number of seed investments we do is roughly 80%. If you would compare it to per million inhabitants, we roughly keep up with the US in seed money. But we start losing that in Series A and B, and if you go beyond the real scaling money, we don't have an answer. So I agree with you there. And then if you look at seed funding, you see our average seed amount is roughly the same as the US. So we invest quite a lot, you would say. So the core finding would be something along the lines that, okay, there we have a scaling problem, not a seed problem. You hear people saying that everywhere. But anyway, anybody who does something with AI, maybe raise your hand. Who is real busy with data and AI? Raise your hand. What is most important about data and AI is the quality of your data. And this comes here as well, data provenance. So if you look at the data, PitchBook, Crunchbase, D-Room, this is basically data we use to gauge that. We see the information, whether it's a seed investment or a Series E, A, or B, we don't know. These organizations don't know. It's sometimes in the press release, but most of the time they need to guess that. Was this the seed investment, a Series A investment, or not? And how do they judge that? They look at the size of the investment. So if it's an investment of 100 million, probably not a seed investment. If the company is already 10 years old, it's probably not a seed investment. And if they have already 5 earlier rounds, it's not a seed investment. But if you look at those 3, the most important is the size of the investment. And what typically is used, investments below 5 million are just a seed, and above 5 million, they're seen as Series A. And I have an example here. Typically situation, Series A investment, I will do the investment, nice AI company comes to me, says, okay, I already been 3 times, my product is good, I want to scale, I want to start scaling. And I'll make an investment plan, and I invest 3 million in that company. It's their first round, because they got some subsidies around and stuff like that. They've got their first 3 million. What you see in the database, actually it's a Series A, but because it's below 5 million, in all the databases it's registered as seed funding, and that's a Series A. The same company, but then in the US, they get 12 million. Why? Their computer scientist doesn't cost 100,000 euros. In our case, they cost 100,000. In their case, they cost 500,000 euros. So they need more money, they need more funding, and then it's registered as a Series A. And that makes it that there's a bias in the data. And I looked at the last 30 investments that I did, or that we did. From the 30 investments, 10 was Series A, 20 was seed, but in the database, they were all 30 registered as seed. And that's a big problem, because that means that our problem is not only the scaling problem, and I do agree that we have a scaling problem, but we have also a seed problem. We don't invest enough in seed, because if we compare seed capital in the US, we basically compare that between seed plus Series A in the Netherlands. And that's not the right way. So my opportunity is we need to invest in talent. So we need to invest if the role of the ROMs, as I see it, we are the youth academies to bring enterprises further to a growth stage and then grow. But if you only would scale up, you need to bring the home talent up and running. Now we invest too little. So in football terms, that would we say that we bring 14-year-old child already into the Champions League, then it's a waste of money. So how is AI doing that? So this was the whole idea of all VCs, looking a little bit on AI investments in the Netherlands. So I looked to early stage, so it's basically those 3 stages, where as ROM we are most active. And these are all the investments in the Netherlands done the last 5 years. I collected the big data set here. Basically, this is deal room together with all the things that we did as ROM Nederland. Then we put all the RVO seed capital investments on top of that and the RVO VFF investments in a big database. What you see here is that the market share of the ROMs has been growing from 40% to 60% the last 5 years. Why is that? That's because the number of investments in the Netherlands is going down. Especially a lot of commercial seed capital has been leaving the market for a couple of years. You see also the total investments going back from 700 to roughly 500. The ROMs amount has been steadying up, meaning it's a little bit the same, because a lot of the investors have left the market in the last 5 years. I see this now a little bit changing, and the first new seed funds are getting back to the market. But this is in general, our market share in the Netherlands. I looked of these 3,000 companies, so going back, so the 3,124 deals, how much were AI investors? And I made a little bit, so I did it for an hour. So this is a little scoring model. And I looked, okay, of all those investments, are that really AI investments? And I put it as AI native or AI model builders. So not AI related. Not every company that does something with AI is an AI company. So how much of these investments are actually AI companies? And this model is very strict, and it should be bigger than this, but it gives a rough idea. These are then the AI investments in the Netherlands. Roughly, what you see is that the AI share is growing somewhat, but especially the AI native, the really core investments are there. And there are also some startups that really build models. I see it as well. Yesterday I invested in a startup that built their own model. This is a little bit also how this landscape looks. These AI companies, what kind of AI companies would you see? This is a little bit the market share in the Netherlands. So this is what they do. A lot of it in the health and medtech, but also enterprise software, robotics, very important, especially in Eindhoven area. So this is it. So what are the opportunities for the Netherlands then, looking at this? This is basically a report that InvestNL and ROM Nederland wrote in November. Basically, this is the same analysis as Dimitri made. Vertical AI, some sectors, human and real-world enterprises, so the sensors, data sharing, model validation platforms, scientific AI, what we have with Accelerate and Cusp AI, for instance, and then energy efficient hardware, that's Accelerate. So we know what we have to do. But then, we now in November, we made that all, we did these calculations, and now we are 6 months further, we've not done anything. So I would say there's a lot of risk of others passing us, of every of these fields. So vertical AI, we're not the only one doing vertical AI. There are zillions companies in the US doing vertical AI. Mistral does vertical AI. So we need to move there. Are we doing enough? Answer is no, roughly. We're not moving. We have ideas, but not acting on it. So some recommendations from my side. We don't have a strategy problem, we have an execution problem. And we don't have enough money to put in that. And we are too slow. good example of being too slow is when I started co-writing the Dutch AI strategy of the NL AI coalition, it was 2019. Then before people took decisions, it took 2 years. In those 2 years, we had GPT 2.5. We know the world was going to change, but our report was the same. And then our actions was the same. And before we really start executing, it was 2024. So we have a 5-year lag. So what do we need to do now? We know from the China and we know from the US what we need to do. We need to bring capital. And there we have opportunities. Because you saw the billion in the first, that was $1 billion on subsidies. I can translate $1 billion in subsidies in 20 billion in venture capital. Because venture capital costs are much lower than subsidies. And you get it revolving, you get it back. So why don't we quit with subsidies, or make it a lot less, and do much more investments? Because there's enormous multiplier on that. I do think we need to invest in national VC funds, because the state needs to put up here, as in China, but I don't believe it's only scale capital. We need to make sure this funnel works, that we have the youth academies from TTT to ROMs, to InvestNL, to commercial, and make that working. What is important, these data that we have are unique. So we have a lot of data, try to find it. Like Medal, our guys that with the video data, I'm now contacted almost every couple of weeks by someone from Silicon Valley that offers money, do you know, unique video data, because it's worth money. And I think the example of GPT-NL is very interesting here, because to build that model, they offered companies also value. Said, okay, if you bring your data, we bring GPT-NL, you get money for your data. We need to think about those kinds of solutions. And I did a report last year to data sharing initiatives, a lot of ideals, but no scale. Open source is also an opportunity. Then I would say 2 things on this. Sometimes I believe in the infant industry argument. If Europe would say tomorrow, okay, for all government areas and all infrastructure, critical infrastructure, we can only use a European LLM instead of a European solution, then I'm sure a lot of outside investors will like Mistral much more than they would like them now. So doing things like that is important. Then don't believe in too much strategy making, just execute, execute, execute. That means that you have a plan, you give a lot of money, and I don't know who, to ROMs or to InvestNL, to NGF, I don't know, care to whom, to TTTs, but let them decide what's hip and happening, because the field of AI is changing so rapidly. Before you know it, your strategy is old. For instance, LLMs roughly doubling capacity every 4 months. So you need to involve that. So that was roughly my idea. The Dutch problem is not a lack of knowledge or research, but a shortage of venture capital, venture building, access to data, launching customers, and speed of decision making. Thank you.
That is quite a lot, Arian.
Yeah, sorry.
So then we actually have a cultural problem. Willingness to share data, being launching customer, investing in early stage.
We have, especially with a lot of corporations, we have a fear problem. In 2018, I built a automatic robot, a judge that does decision making. There's an AI judge in 2018. I had a PhD on that. We took 4 years to get all the data, get all the OKs. Then we built a model in 3 months. It was better for simple cases like too hard driving, red lights, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It worked like a charm, and every judge liked it. And we now 7 years further, and the technology is now even much better than it was then. But we still don't find it very difficult to let AI do decisions, although they make these decisions much better than we do.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. We have room for one question. Yes, go ahead.
The mic that we
Where's the
control.
mic?
Where's the mic?
Where is it?
Oh, no, maybe we do it like this.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing the urgency. Absolutely agree with everything you said. I only have a question about your triangle in the end, where you identify data, talent, and industry policy. I think the elephant in the room is compute, because we don't have compute in the Netherlands either. And I know that the next speaker is going to talk about the Netherlands AI factory, but that one, I mean, quite frankly, that one has the size that is fitting for a medium-sized computer science department in the Netherlands. How do you see that?
Yeah, I agree. So I basically end with the top three, and this would be, I started with 5, and then I killed 2 of them. And the idea was, with a lot of money, maybe you can buy some compute. So we had some discussions with the AI Factory today. Maybe we can do a deal that from any investments that we do, we get free compute from the AI Factory for startups. So I'm looking, but the thing is, that's a problem. I let my students 6 months ago do a quick calculation on the back of a sheet. I said, okay, how much energy do we need if we want to keep up the same level of compute as the US? And they calculated we need 6 gas turbines or 4 extra nuclear power generations in the next 10 years to power enough compute comparable to the US. Something that people don't want to hear.
Thank you very much, Arian. Yeah, very, very eager to come up on stage, I think, is Erwin Kuiper, my colleague from the AI Coalition, also serial entrepreneur himself, and now leading the AI Factory in Groningen. Please share your story.
Thank you. Oh, I like the picture. I hope I can, let's say, answer, the stage setting and Dimitri's need for knowing what the AI Factory is all about. I'm going to focus on a little bit of background, but I'm going to focus on how we can actually already today make use of the EuroHPC network, of the network that we as a Dutch AI Factory are part of. Right at the bottom, you see a number of logos. That's the consortium that has done the application for the EuroHPC facility. So that some of you all know. Samenwerking Noord is a regional organization. I will tell a little bit more about that later. TNO you all know, and I am from the AI Coalition of the Netherlands. This is a picture of the last round, I called it, or final round. The EuroHPC was let's say, based on calls, national calls in a European setting, and these 7 countries, 6, were part of the final round. So we were actually the last of the last round to get the funding from EuroHPC. This is the network of the AI factories and the antennas, so they're called. So that's some countries don't have a own factory, but are part of the network. This is the way it's funded, both. So here you see who paid, let's say. So the Dutch, the Groningen region has put up 60 million, and pretty much they were, let's say, inviting, let's say, the Hague to do a 70, and EuroHPC works like this. You have a good plan, and you have money. And if they say it's a good plan and you have the money, then they put up also extra money, and that's why we in total get to the 200 million euros. And 200 million euros buys us this today. I did the squiggles, and so approximately 8 1,800 GPUs. I don't know, you most probably will all have heard about the rising cost of GPUs, so that 1,800 is a number that works roughly today, but might not work in the long run. We planned, for instance, our plan of a year ago was scaled at 2,000 GPUs. Okay, so the money goes to the calculator, we call it, staffing and power in roughly that way. It's funded for 5 years, and it's 100% publicly funded. That's very important, and that's why it's a R&D test and train facility. And models that are trained at our facility need to go to a production facility once they get to the higher TRL levels. So it's two components, an expertise center and a facility. The expertise center will, in many different ways, amongst other things, data quality as a topic, help organizations to get their stuff running on the AI factory. And these are the main parties that we do this for in a certain dimension. I will talk about it in a little bit. So it's mainly designed for R&D test and train, and it's usable by these. Kinds of, let's say, companies and organizations, and then it's also usable for in percentages for 50% for Europe, 23% for the region, and 27% for Dutch calls, so to speak. So the 50% for Europe is meant to, let's say, oblige us to cooperate as a pan-European network, really. So we are eligible, as an eligible country, let's say, within the European HPC network, are eligible to compute on facilities of other European countries, but that's also the other way around. So our facility, once we get it, we also need to be open to the other Euro HPC countries. And then there's the division between the industry, research, and government. And we, I frame it like this, but the 5% government seems a bit small, let's say, in comparison, but they will mainly be working as a launching customer and be part of more projects than they, let's say, you would expect from the 5%. So these facilities are already up and running, and these are also the facilities that you can run your project on today. So I put the URL, and I would imagine that we get the presentation. So the URL and the QR code will work, and then when you go to these websites, to the website of EuroHPC, you will see that it's scaled in roughly these lanes. So playground, 5,000 GPU hours, which is mainly meant to, let's say, get used to AI optimized HPC environment. So have your own setup and port it to the HPC environment, and mainly look at, let's say, parallelizing the stuff that you have already running. We're at the first stage, we're looking at organizations that are, let's say, working towards their boundaries in time and money, and so we can help them iterate far faster, and help them in that playground to parallelize what they have already running, let's say, at home. So, and if you pass that stage and you're, let's say, part of that let's say, software stack, then you can, if you need it, go to the fast lane and the large scale, and we calculate in GPU hours, and this is 5,000 GPU hours, but that's not the main important thing. The main important thing there is get your stuff on the AI optimized HPC and parallelize your setup. So you will get to 100 or a factor 200 faster iterations. From your HPC perspective, there's not a lot of demands on who can participate and who can respond to calls. So there's no minimum consortium per se. The larger scale projects will also, of course, look at, let's say, quality of the entire consortium. But they do find important that the project has at least, let's say, someone to pinpoint, let's say, as a project lead. There's a technical lead and a data owner. Data owner is very important, of course, in these kinds of projects. So this is what we're for. Data sovereignty is and sovereignty in let's say in more general terms is very important for us, and that's also what we want to, let's say, have as a differentiator in the realm of the EuroHPC network. And this is what you will see if you go to the EuroHPC website. And for instance, here you see a call that's open all year, 330 days, and looking at mainly the smaller EuroHPC playground calls. So that will have a quite short analysis period, and you could be up and running within weeks and in a maximum of 2 months. Just to give you an idea, what 50,000 GPU hours would mean, for instance, for our facility. So if we have approximately 2,000 GPUs, this is what it would mean, for instance, if you use that amount of GPUs, and this is, of course, for the entire facility. And and this is, I think, the main answer again is that we really want to do that 100-time, 200-time upscaling in speed for your setup. As an example of a playground project, this is a company that learns a robot to mimic a human arm, and they. This is exactly the example that I just gave. They went from their own setup to a EuroHPC infrastructure, and they got about 100 times faster parallelization. Different projects that already run. Small language models, some analysis, for instance, for battery lifetime. So it's also, let's say, environmental and economical advantages. And this is a 50,000 GPU hours project. This is a small language model for the Scandics. There are also data projects, really. For instance, synthetic data. For instance, reusage of data. This is an example from the agricultural environment. This is a pan-European system that can pinpoint the boundaries of farmland, and both in Norway and in Italy, it can analyze that. So for it's a pan-European project. Of course, healthcare, radio information, better analysis of tumors, less fallout, and all that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I had the assignment to be fast. If I talk slowly, then it's 19 minutes.
That was so fast clicking. Yes, you saw my evil eye.
And the ticking box.
And the ticking box. But of course, are there questions? There is a room for one or two. Yeah. Where's the catch box? Yeah. Thank you, Thijs. Is it working?
And
yeah.
You hear me? Would you like to give us a timeline for when the AI factory is going to be operational, when the, I don't know, when startups apply for
Yeah,
access?
so my main message was you can start today within European setup. So you could do a Euro HPC call today and run on Barcelona, for instance. Our own facility will be available by the end of next year.
And what does it imply to run in Barcelona?
What do you mean?
Well, how easy is it to get your stuff there?
Well, very okay.
Yeah.
There you go. No, well, I think, for instance, the playground is it's lightweight. You need to show that you know what you're talking about, what your setup is, and how it could, let's say, port to the HPC environment. And if you can do that, then you can start working on the HPC. Your HPC tells you what facility you will run on, and sometimes it's dependent on, for instance, which GPU you're already using, and those kinds of things. But they will say where you can run your project, and we will, as a AI factory, Dutch AI Factory Expertise Center, will help you if you need help to get your project defined as good as, let's say, with a highest success rate. The current success rate on average is 70%.
Wow.
So it's a quite
high.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Edwin. And now our next speaker has the honor to be finishing this first part. And of course, no scaling without the people who's backing them, so the investors. Thomas Hannes, he's partner at Luma Labs, and Luma Labs is also, of course, involved in the TTT AI program. So you will be sharing your experiences and what needs to be done to improve the Dutch AI landscape, I suppose. Thomas, please feel free to come on stage.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. When I walked in this morning at the Prosus AI building, I, like everybody, got a badge. And it was quite interesting because as you look at your badge, you're a visitor, and I'm a vendor. Well, good luck, but I'm not going to sell anything to you. But I have something in common with a vendor. Like good vendors, if you really ask deep questions to them, they will say, yeah, well, I have to ask a colleague. They are good at vending something. I'm an investor, I basically have knowledge about, I don't have any knowledge about anything. I do have the luck that I talk to entrepreneurs that do know a lot about something. And that's why I love this job. The only thing that I do know a little bit about is investing. And that's why they asked me to be on stage here. I'll tell you a bit about the investor's perspective. Lumo, we are an investor and we invest in digital deep tech companies. Preferably companies that want to leave the world a little bit better than they found it. And that's why we have an SDG focus, as you can see it. And we do that in the pre-seed and seed stage. And we can cooperate in Series A as well. We do that by equity, but also with expert leadership. Again, people that know a lot more about things than me. So we fly in experts for that. And we build ecosystems, so we can help our portfolio companies actually tap into the parties that are willing to use their services. What we saw is that there is actually a funding gap. And that thing that was also told to you about in the previous speeches, but what we see is that especially later stage has quite some money available, though of course from the US mainly, and that comes with its perspectives, but there is money available. If you look earlier, Series A, B, yeah, there is some money available, but it's tight. But if you look at the seed stage, we saw that there was actually quite a lack of money, and in the pre-seed stage as well, while it's not visible here. And why is that? It's because we like digital deep tech companies. And in these stages, companies need a lot more money in the early stage than at the late than the average companies. It's quite capital efficient if you build a wrapper for a large language model. While if you build true digital deep tech, good luck with asking your friends and family for a little bit of money to finance that. That's also why we are the investor in TTT AI, and we partner with TTT AI. And we love to do that. How do we work? As I mentioned, we do equity investments. We invest tickets up to 500K, maybe a little bit more into these spin-outs of universities. But we also do with coaching, and we build the ecosystem. And we try to get our portfolio companies across the chasm to make sure that they can tap into the other investors that actually have money. We don't just invest money, but we see that it's not up to a founder to invent the wheel every time by itself. So we invest time as well. And as mentioned, not me, I don't know investing, but others that do know try to help with that. We have a bit of track record. Quite some companies where you invest in, but maybe more important is that we did invest in 18 companies that actually are spin-outs of universities, so we know the field. And one that I'm really proud of is the latest one. Everybody asks always, what's your favorite investment? That's always the latest one, though I do know that there is quite some founders here which we invested in as well, so don't worry, I love you as well. But Magicware, it's a company that builds the fuel for quantum computers. And they come out of Delft's ecosystem. And one thing that we love is that in quantum, we are actually still at the forefront of building a leadership position as Europe. While maybe in AI we might have passed that. And TU Delft, there is quite some spin-outs of TU Delft that are that have a quite a good position in that field. But what we like as well is that we have contacts with IQM in Finland and Pascal in Paris that we can, again, ecosystem building, we can tap them into. And that helps. Given time, I see that the bomb ticking here as well. I'll be really quick. So one example is, for example, Snaxis. It's a spin out of TNO. And it was already more than 10 years of research into this company before it spun out. So you can really see that it has the essence of that digital deep tech, what we like. It has meaningful IP, which make it a sustainable business. And it's not that easy to copy to do what they do. But bringing that to the market is still risky. Within TNO, it had a different context of building it than when you bring it out. Well, we invested in it. We invested quite significant money into it for a pre-seed stage, 1.1 million, together with TNO, which is a great partner in this. And we see that the company is actually now moving towards the market and is tapping into customers. And there is a big need for this technology. So it would be a shame if this technology would have lain in the closet at TNO, which of course was developed. There was quite some money going into it in TNO, but as a spin-out, we see a lot of potential for it. So, what's the opportunity of investing in spin-outs? I'll do this really quickly because I saw a lot of these slides already in previous presentations. We do see that we are have top-notch universities. And there is actually also quite some value created. So there's money going into it, but this is a European perspective. And if you look at it in a broader perspective, it's quite average what we do in the Netherlands in terms of investing. And if you compare that to the US or China, it's lacking. But there was a lot told about that. And we see quite some opportunity in AI. So there is, of course, I'm talking here for the TTT AI fund, but there's also other TTTs on MedTech, on deep tech, on RegMed, on clean tech, that also have specific focus and do the same that we do. But we focus on AI, and we see quite some opportunities there. There's also quite some investors nowadays that focus on technology spin-outs. Though what we see is that especially these dedicated funds, and if you look through it quickly, you see quite some Dutch funds because this is the European field. They lack a little bit of the power. So I do have to say that I agree with Arian. Yeah, more money is required, and that's a bit of a shame. But there is investors for sure, though they filling in the whole need is still difficult. So, what's our perspective? And that's the main topic, and I see 2.5 minutes left for that. So, good luck. What's important and what are our learnings for investing? And maybe this is maybe for other investors, but it's also a little bit for entrepreneurs because you can learn from that as well, because you can tailor towards that. One of the learnings that we have is that it's really important to cooperate, especially with the universities. A typical spin-out is not like any other startup that will find your investment fund. You will need to know the ways. If you are looking for a spinning out, you need to find the KTO, work with the KTO and get towards a spin out. In the case with TT, you can get a voucher with it, and that helps. The second learning is you need to have a strong focus on a leadership team. What we see too often is that an academical spin-out consists of academical people, which is not wrong, though that needs to be balanced. Having somebody that continuously pushes the bar and continuously searches for the edges is important. Having a founder there is really important. That goes two-sided. I think in the US there is quite some knowledge and acknowledgement of that the great opportunities exist within universities. And that's a bit lacking here in Europe. So good entrepreneurs that did have an exit before are not capable yet of finding these startups, which is a big lack. And it's a bit of a shame because there's huge opportunities. And I think these companies are very sustainable and might really become the market leaders of the future. Number 3 learning is that it does cost a lot of money, especially digital deep tech. In a very early stage needs more money than a typical large language model wrapper. And that's often forgotten. So more money is required in that very early stage. Forming syndicates is therefore important. So what we learned is that we need to work with other parties in the market. We are not competitors of other investors, but we like to work with them, having deeper pockets and making sure that these companies go further. Especially with the regional development companies. We see that we do quite a lot of investments, but we'd like to do it with other investors as well. Being out there is quite important. Why I'm here. You need to find your ways, but not all academic founders know how to find an investor. So that's why I'm here and trying to be visible, but it's quite important. And what's quite less in the picture, but is missing a bit is what we see is with these academic spin-offs, they tend to focus more on the IP. And that's important because you're building a sustainable basis for a company based on the IP. If you focus on commercial metrics, commercially, investors looking, how much revenue do you make? You're gonna miss the essence of the company. These spin-outs have a different trajectory to market leadership than typical startups. Where with a large language model wrapper, you can go to $1 million in revenue within 2 years. That's not gonna happen with a deep tech spin-out. And patience, which comes back to everything. But don't expect you as a founder to be able to spin out something and get investment within a week. These things take months. You need to get licenses on board. And also from our side, we need to have a lot of patience before that happens, unfortunately. So what we look for, great teams with domain expertise and strong vision and huge market. But that's something that every investor will say. Thanks.
So now you do sound like a vendor, Thomas. So everybody go to him if you have a nice proposition. Thank you very much. We'll be seeing you also after the break in the round tables. So I'll leave it here. Thank you very much for your talk. So yeah, I think what we've seen, although was just said we need patience, we also have a very clear sense of urgency and we need to grasp the momentum to move from excellent research to unstoppable AI companies. The part afterwards will be more open. We'll open the arena for you. Please join us in the discussions. Arian will take care of that. He's my colleague in Breaking Barriers, but right now he's here with the head of Senior Deep Tech Leader, Tech Leap, something like that. Senior Connector, I think it is. But more about that after the break. Thank you very much. Nou, ik heb het maar even kort gehouden.
Sowieso, broertje, dat zijn facts. Al mijn pokoes hebben flex. Ben met proefvoet, dat is mijn P. Mijn Kili en Mbappé. Allo, wij kregen niks cadeau. Maak hits als Colasso. Wat matcha, die is een theesip van mijn wasabi. Ik ben onderweg naar millions. Wasabi. Ja, ik ga stupid, maar ik ben niet dom. Wasabi. Dus als ze bellen op mijn telefoon. Wasabi. Allo, 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 nog een ton. Wasabi. Sexy, klein is half Maghreb. Dit was nog tanger, ik stress niet. Die rode Ferrari of Bentley. Je meisje wil dat ik er afpak, want ik ben hier met die lastpak. Nee, wij worden nooit, never meer nooit. Nee, never meer platzak. Ik maak een slippertje safe, toch wil ze chillen met papi. Ik zeg ze allemaal één voor één. Wasabi. Ik ben onderweg naar millions. Wasabi. Ja, ik ga stupid, maar ik ben niet dom. Wasabi. Dus als ze bellen op mijn telefoon. Allo, 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 nog een ton. Wasabi. 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 Allo, 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 nog een ton.
geslagen. Ik had beloofd me te gedragen. We proosten op alles, niets is te gek. Ik wil dansen en zingen en wat liefde te vinden. Wil heel het pakket voor ik hier vertrek. We blijven met z'n allen, deze plek is ons decor. Het ritme van de glaas klinkt als muziek in mijn oor. Zolang ik geen vogels hoor fluiten, ga ik niet naar buiten. We gaan nog even door. Oh cheerio. Er is geen veldje aan de lucht, geen gezeur en geen gezicht. Oh cheerio. Ja la 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 la. Ja la 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 la. Ja la 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 la. Oh cheerio. Er is geen veldje aan de lucht, geen gezeur en geen gezicht. Oh cheerio. Nee, er is geen veldje aan de lucht, geen gezeur en geen gezicht. Oh cheerio.
You stepped inside with a vibe I ain't never seen. Yes, you did. Ooh, so girl, if you talk like you walk, come and talk to me. But look here, it would break my heart, break my heart, break my heart if I find out you can't move. You better show me now, show me now, show me now. Cause when I take it to the floor, ooh, you gotta get down. You know what to do. Hey, Mr. DJ, play a song of this pretty little lady. Cause if she dances good as she look right now, I just might make her my baby. I just might make her my baby. Hey, I just might. Oh, I just might. But first, may I just say that your face got me so intrigued. I'm so intrigued. But what good is beauty if your booty can't find a beat? I don't wanna know, girl. So please don't do that to me. Cause it would break my heart, break my heart, break my heart if I find out you can't move. You better show me now, show me now, show me now. Cause when I take it to the floor, ooh, you gotta get down. You know what to do. Hey, Mr. DJ, play a song of this pretty little lady. Cause if she dances good as she look right now, I just might make her my baby. I just might make her my baby. Hey, woo, 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 woo. Woo, 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 woo. This the part where you break it all the way down, 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 down. This the part where I turn you all the way around, round, round, round. Put some spirit in it, put your heart into it. That's all I need. And if I like what I see, you're coming home with me. Hey, Mr. DJ, play a song for this pretty little lady. Cause if she dances good as she look right now, I just might make her my baby. I just might make her my baby. Hey, Mr. DJ, play a song for this pretty little lady. Cause if she dances good as she look right now, I just might make her my baby. I just might make her my baby. Hey, I just might. Oh, I just might. Breathe it like a picture, dangerous as a dagger. I know I've been here before. There's something so familiar. Guess I'm going with ya. Yeah, oh, don't really wanna know if you're
Saucy, soja. Ik weet niet wat het is, maar baby girl, ik hoor je. Spend my money on you, all my money on you. Ik weet niet wat het is, misschien heb ik het mis. Zag jou al staan van ver, en jij bent echt een soort van superster. Jij krijgt zoveel aandacht, je bent populair. Hoe dan ook wil ik je sowieso. Waze in de chat, alleen maar respect toen je shake wat je hebt, Body dom, zoveel aandacht dat je erin omkomt, Sherry zo bad, en ik zie dat van een kilometer, Jij bent magisch, ik ben niet Dali, whinen voor daddy. Nice to know you, zoveel body on you. Saucy, soja. Ik weet niet wat het is, baby girl, ik hoor je. Spend my money on you, all my money on you. Ik weet niet wat het is, misschien heb ik het mis. Zag jou al staan van ver, en jij bent echt een soort van superster. Jij krijgt zoveel aandacht, je bent populair. Hoe dan ook wil ik je sowieso.
Oh, ik wil je leren kennen. Elke move lijkt net een scène. Er is niemand anders die ik zie. Oh baby. Nice to know you. Zoveel party on you. Saucy, soja. Ik weet niet wat het is, maar baby girl, ik hoor je. Spend my money on you, all my money on you. Ik weet niet wat het is, misschien heb ik het mis. Zag jou al staan van ver, en je bent echt een soort van superster. Want jij krijgt zoveel aandacht, je bent populair.
Hoe dan ook wil ik je sowieso.
It's time, nu is big my modus. She mijne, ze heeft niks meer nodig. My baby, ik ben die guy, je vindt niet zo mooi. Super blue, hoe het lijm kan er niks aan doen. Hey, super blue, zal jij kan er niks aan doen. Oh no, it's amazing baby shake. In beweging, make it rain. Het is één ding dat ik weet. Style van je mee. Ik heb nieuws van je, ja. Zat ik ben de star van een nieuw kaliber. Ik ben aankom de zomer daarna, maar ik kom en we gaan, ik wil spenden op jou. Yeah.
Nice to know you.
Oh yeah.
Zoveel body on you. Saucy, soja. Ik weet niet wat het is, maar baby girl, ik hoor je. Spend my money on you, all my money on you. Ik weet niet wat het is, misschien heb ik het mis. Zag jou al staan van ver, en jij bent echt een soort van superster. Jij krijgt zoveel aandacht, je bent populair.
Hoe dan ook het ineens alsof ik bij je ben. Ze zeggen de tijd zorgt ervoor dat het went. Maar geen dag gaat voorbij dat ik niet aan je denk. En soms ben ik bang dat ik vergeet hoe je me aankeek. Alles wat ik beloof, dat heb ik gedaan. Toch is het loodzwaar om verder te gaan. Dus ik laat je niet los, laat je niet los. Ik laat je niet gaan, laat je niet gaan. Je blijft bij mij, blijf bij mij. Want ik hou van jou tot het eind van mij. Ik laat je niet los, laat je niet los. Ik laat je niet gaan, laat je niet gaan. Je blijft bij mij, blijf bij mij. Want ik hou van jou tot het eind van mij. Tot het eind van mij. Ik woon in de stad, nu bij mijn zus om de hoek. Ik zat van de week nog bij pa op de bank. Hij mist je nog steeds, maar hij doet nonchalant. En soms ga ik slecht en maar alleen hier in de leegte. Tot ik eventjes aan jou dacht. Dus ik fluister je naam heel zacht. En ik laat je niet los, laat je niet los. Ik laat je niet gaan, laat je niet gaan. Je blijft bij mij, blijf bij mij. Want ik hou van jou tot het eind van mij. Ik laat je niet los, laat je niet los. Ik laat je niet gaan, laat je niet gaan. Je blijft bij mij, blijf bij mij. Want ik hou van jou tot het eind van mij. Tot het eind van mij. Ik laat je niet los, laat je niet los. Ik laat je niet gaan, laat je niet gaan. Zeven dagen stormen, alles komt weer tegelijk. Zeg me waar te zoeken, kan er pauze op de tijd. En dan bel je me weer op, ik ben nu buiten bereik. Maar straks weer in je armen als ik stop bij Weesperplein. Want toen ik op de metro wachtte, had ik nog maar één gedachte. Ik wil alleen met jou de dag weer overdoen. Haal me op, neem me mee, wil een bubbel voor ons twee. Ik wil uren als minuten in een huisje aan de zee. Jij de rots, ik de branding, we zijn nooit zo vrij geweest. Er komt niets, hoeft niemand tussen ons cliché. Een huisje aan de zee. Weet je nog toen ik je thuis 3 gangen had beloofd? Jij wist als geen ander dat het altijd anders loopt. En ik belde je weer op, met het spijt me ben te laat. Ik hoor je en ik weet weer waar het eigenlijk om gaat. Want toen ik op de metro wachtte, had ik nog maar één gedachte. Ik wil alleen met jou de dag weer overdoen. Hou me op, neem me mee, wil een bubbel voor ons twee. Ik wil uren als minuten in een huisje aan de zee. Jij de rots, ik de branding, we zijn nooit zo vrij geweest. Er komt niets of niemand tussen ons cliché. Een huisje aan de zee. Een huisje aan de zee. Oeh, en als we daar dan samen zijn. Oeh, is de zee weer ons refrein. Oeh, met de duinen in mijn rug wil ik nooit, nooit, nooit meer terug. Hou me op, neem me mee, wil een bubbel voor ons twee. Ik wil uren als minuten in een huisje aan de zee. Jij de rots, ik de branding, we zijn nooit zo vrij geweest. Er komt niets of niemand tussen ons cliché. Een huisje aan de zee.
To the clouds where we can fly away. And if it's time to go, then maybe we should stay. Staying forever now, a million miles away. I'm in a daydream, looking back. You keep me rushing like a light beam to the past. And if it's time to go, then maybe we should stay. Staying forever now, a million miles away. It started in my soul with dandelion days. So take me to the clouds where we can fly away. And if it's time to go, then maybe we should stay. Staying forever now, a million miles away. I'm in a daydream, looking back. You keep me rushing like a light beam to the past. And if it's time to go, then maybe we should stay. Staying forever now, a million miles away. Dandelion days, so take me to the clouds where we can fly away. And if it's time to go, then maybe we should stay. Staying forever now, a million miles away. I'm in a daydream, looking back. You keep me rushing like a light beam to the past. And if it's time to go, then maybe we should stay. Staying forever now, a million miles away.
Ils vont me mettre aux arrêts. J'envoie banger depuis des années. On va les désarmer, tous les DJ aux aguets. Est-ce que j'aurai l'exclu cette année? Come on baby, soleil sur ton corps. C'est fort, elle ouvre toutes tes bords. Alors, tu l'as deviné, je vais la serrer fort mais sans l'abîmer. Ton rinté, j'arrive sur ton rinté. Contrôle de la poitrine orientée. On va les faire douter, tu connais mon karaté. J'arrive plein phare donc je peux pas rater. Come on baby, soleil sur ton corps. C'est fort, elle ouvre toutes tes bords. Alors, tu l'as deviné, je vais la serrer fort mais sans l'abîmer. Elle veut un mec plus stable, un mec plus fiable, un mec en place qui ramène des dalles. Un mec plus stable, un mec plus fiable, un mec en place.
All right, everyone. Time to move to the next bit. I know it's very exciting to see each other. All right, thank you. Welcome back. You feel the excitement in the room. Obviously, you haven't seen each other for a long time and have a lot to catch up on. So we're going to do that after as well. So there are drinks. There's plenty of time to talk still. We're just going to finish this second part of the program. So I'm taking over. And there will be some panel discussions and also opportunities to ask some questions. We have 3 panels, 2 of which I will moderate, one with entrepreneurs, one with investors, and then Arian, second Arian Square. He is coming in for the 3rd panel. And in between we have Max Welling as well, talking about Casper AI. So first, before we get started with the panel discussion, they asked me to give a little update on TechLeap. I only have 5 minutes. There's actually quite a few things happening at TechLeap. And this is not my presentation, funny enough. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, here we are. Let's see if we... is there anything that looks familiar? I can go through this again. But this wouldn't be the same, right? I've got 33 slides. Oh, really? Okay. All right. Oh, they're gonna take it. They can take it out. Anyway, TechLeap. I can do it like this as well. It's no problem at all. All right. So TechLeap. Most of you, I think, are familiar with TechLeap. It's an organization that's been around for since 2018 with sort of various mandates, right? So TechLeap works in cycles. They have a mandate for 3 years. They need to deliver and have a certain focus on certain areas, and then they move on to the next one. So every time, it means that we have to prove ourselves, make sure that we do good work, because otherwise the next iteration wouldn't be funded, right? So we're now in the 3rd edition for TechLeap, TechLeap 3.0, as we call it. And it looks completely different, and that's what I wanted to show you a little bit. So if the slides do come up, I have some background visuals as well. There are 2 parts to TechLeap 3.0. One is the public part. That's the sort of the original TechLeap, and it's purely focused on deep tech and valorization. So it's all about commercialization of research, working with universities about spin-off creation and growing spin-offs in a meaningful and successful way. So that's the valorization part. The deep tech part is around the, oh, here we are. This is great, thank you. All right, so I'm already in the next slide, which kind of shows you the new structure. Public part, actually that's this one. On the left-hand side, deep tech and ecosystem, as we call it, but it's basically valorization, commercialization of research. And then we have the private part, which is a not-for-profit part, and we have a number of activities there. It's actually 3 of them. We have the original TechLeap community, which is the Scale community, with Scale founders like the CEOs from Booking, Adyen. They have a fairly substantial founder community there. They're going to do events and all sorts of stuff around that community. We have the AI Hub. I'll have a slide on that as well. And the 3rd one is the fund. So there will be a fund managed by TechLeap as well. So it looks like this. We have a board, again, it looks a little bit complex. We have a board with 3 members. Vinod is the member for the deep tech public side. So he's been involved in that. Maaike and Thomas are also there, but they're also in the private part. And Marijn is purely focused on the private tech lead part. Now, Constantijn is reporting into the board for the whole sort of deep tech private and public space. So he's working with us, but he's also working with the private entities as well. Bob Rietveld is the community lead on the private side, and we're still looking for leaders in the AI Hub and for the fund as well. Greg de Temmerman is the new man in the public space, so my new boss in essence, and he has taken over from Maarten Kleren, who has done that job for the last sort of 3-4 years. So this is what the new structure looks like. So we can talk about it a little bit further later on. Just a little bit on the AI Hub, because that's obviously something that is sort of like aside from other initiatives in the AI market, right? So at TechLeap, they have decided that they wanted to have, and not only from TechLeap's point of view, but also from the founders' point of view, they really wanted to get a physical space where the founders would sit together, work together, and inspire each other as well. So that's what the AI Hub is. It's a physical powerhouse for the Dutch AI ecosystem. And these are sort of the 3 elements that are important to them. So again, you can talk about it as well. So like I said, the story is kind of intertwined, but there's a new subsidy proposal for TechLeap 3.0. There's a budget that is the equivalent of what we had last 3 years, so 15 million for TechLeap to work on 3 years of work. Spin-off excellence and deep tech scaling are the 2 components there, and I go a little bit faster. So how do we do that? We always work from the founder journey, because that's sort of our main focus point. We kind of relate everything to the founder perspective. You see a lot of phases there, won't go through them all, but spin-off creation is really in that first sort of phase. And within spin-off creation, we have 4 phases, sub-phases: potential, opportunity, the transition from IP, from the university space into the market, and then the early traction for those companies as well. Now, there's a few elements to that. It's obviously trying to reverse the tech push to demand pool, so there's elements of that. And also we have a very specific goal in mind to help the ecosystem go forward. We're very data-driven. We have initiatives like the Academic Venture Monitor, for example, where we really measure everything that happens in this ecosystem. Next week, there is a presentation, and lots of you guys have actually contributed to the new data for that on the spin-off report. And we will showcase the latest findings there. And they're quite interesting, actually, because we have some new metrics we want to present as well. And we want to also put it in an international context. So we're benchmarking what we're doing here in the Netherlands with what happens elsewhere, particularly in Europe. From that, we have the ambition to kind of 4x the impact for academic startups. And there's 3 elements to that. So it's not only volume, it's also the quality of startups and the speed by which they get developed, right? Because we think that all of those 3 elements are intertwined. They will make a huge difference if we can impact one of those elements as well. So the metric is to reach, for quality, to reach 1 million in private investment. That's what we're kind of aiming for. And it's around the number per year, the time to reach that 1 million mark. And we're also starting to relate that to the number of startups per 1,000 researchers. Now that's, and I can't go through all the numbers, gives actually really interesting insight. I mentioned the Academic Venture Monitor. Again, too long of a story to go into the details, but this is sort of the data fundamentals underneath the whole strategy for valorization. Now here you see some of the numbers. I'm totally out of time here. But the last one is probably the most interesting one, because that's really we can really compare that to other. We compare universities, I guess. We can compare types of universities and types of research to the number of spin-outs, and that's what we've done. On average, it's 1 spin-off out of 880 FTE scientific personnel, and you see a lot of differences if you look at different parts of the university as well. All right, that's it. Way too fast, but hopefully you get a little bit of a sense of what we're going to do. Then the fun part for the afternoon, which is the panels. I have three amazing founders that I'm going to call on stage. They have been, we've been working together because they've been part of the academic startup competition at some stage, some really new ones, and others have been there a couple of years ago. So I'm running the academic startup competition on behalf of TechLeap, which is a founder program for academic startups. And the winners get to go to the US, which they really enjoy. We just got back actually, so I'm slightly jet lagged. But I'm very happy to have them here. First of all, one of the old timers, one of the alumni of the academic startup competition, Jacqueline Kasmeijer, who is the CEO from Autoscriber. Come on the stage. And then we have Julia Beresutskaya. Beresutskaya, sort of. Yeah, I was trying because we've kind of practiced that last week. CEO of UConnect, fantastic company, just came out of the US as well. And the third one, Joseph Melcher, co-founder and CTO of Proteon. And that's a company that unfortunately didn't make it to the US, but I saw they have fantastic Lumo Labs investments. So they're part of the Lumo Labs portfolio as well. So welcome as well. Yes. All right, make yourself comfortable, have some water. We have about 25 minutes to kind of dive into a few topics, right? And there's a lot to talk about. First, I'm going to give you the 30-second pitch for your company, so you can actually tell the people what you're working on. But with that, I want you to answer also one question. What is the thing that you wish you had known before you started the company? For some, it's a long time ago, others, not so long. So do your 30-second pitch, and then answer that question. Maybe I'll start with Jacqueline on this one.
I think my 30-second pitch is not as prepped as some of the others. But
Come on.
So at Autoscriber, we use AI to assist doctors in the consultation room. So our technology automatically creates structured clinical notes based on the conversation between the doctor and the patient, which reduces administrative load and also enables structured data to be captured at the source, which can then be used downstream to further augment the experience of doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals in the hospital setting mostly. And something that I wish I knew when I started.
Yeah.
I think, especially coming from a tech-heavy background, I think one of the things that I underestimated in this whole journey is how impactful the human side of it is, both from a team perspective but also from a client perspective. So I think as a techie, that's maybe something that we underestimate going in. So I think I wish I'd known to put more emphasis on that from the beginning.
Great, good. We could talk a little bit more about the dynamics and also the kind of the staffing side of your startup as well. Julia, I know you have a great pitch, so you're gonna do. Are you gonna stand as well? No, you're not. Okay.
I can. No, okay. So imagine that you are paralyzed. You cannot move or speak. This is what it was like to be Hanneke. Hanneke was 42 when she was diagnosed with a motor neuron disease. She had 2 teenage daughters at the time. And over the course of the next 5 years, she completely lost the ability to communicate with them. This is where we came in. We came in to help her restore the ability to communicate with her family. We developed a technology called a brain-computer interface. I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking Neuralink. Fair enough. Let me explain that. Neuralink is the company that builds world-class hardware for brain-computer interfaces. UConnect builds world-class software that empowers companies like Neuralink. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. American flavor. You just got back. It's just a week, so that's great. It's still there, hey? It's still there, more or less. Joseph, Proteon.
Yeah, after this speech, it's really good to mention the same height. So I'll just say I'm Joseph. I'm from Proteon, and we offer the clinical decision support platform for hospital oncologists to help them select the best personalized treatment for their cancer patients. Our technology is clinically validated in a clinical trial, and we are implemented in several Dutch hospitals, and now we're looking forward to other hospitals in across Europe. And the one thing I would like to know before starting on this journey is the amount of patience that was mentioned in the previous one half that is needed. I would still describe myself as rather of a patient nature, but it exceeded my expectations nevertheless.
Of how much you need for that.
Yeah, there's this constant friction that you yourself want to move as fast as you can, but the world is not moving with you.
Yeah, that's very true. Julia, I forgot the question with you. What is your thing that you can think of?
Right, I thought of something and then I forgot since you skipped me. I think, yeah, just being overwhelmed by how much kind of ends up on your plate, especially early days. I think I underestimated that a little bit. And I completely agree with what Joseph said, especially in a regulated field like medical technology. All these advances in AI happen so fast that unfortunately it's actually hard to incorporate them immediately because the medical field is very, very slow and heavily regulated. So I think that's also one of the big obstacles that we are going to be facing in the upcoming years.
Okay, thank you. The first, I have a few topics that I want to talk to you about. The first one is around the relationship with the university and the process of spinning out a company. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the markets and AI specific elements. And I think at the end, I do want to have one or two questions around the investment because of the kind of in the lead up to the investor panel that comes after. And hopefully there's a little bit of time for questions as well. So let's try and speed it up as much as we can. First, and maybe Jacqueline, you're the first one to kind of answer that question because you're already out of the university environment for quite a few years. Looking back on that process, what was for you the most challenging thing, and where did you get help, and where would you expect help but didn't get it?
I think our situation was quite unique in that sense because we were working with the university hospital, so it was, I guess, a bit of a different kind of spin out, and I think we were quite lucky in that sense. I think we'll probably hear some different stories from the others, but I think we were created during COVID times, and we just had the luck that I think they also had some restrictions on their corporate interests. So it was a pretty direct exchange of IP for free work, in our case.
So did your collaboration stop immediately after you kind of incorporated the company? So you had no involvement with the university?
No, so what we did was we then signed a collaboration agreement, and basically all IP rights were on our side, and in return they got a license to use the product for free, and also to use it for kind of internal training purposes. But none of the IP rights or licensing rights on the IP were transferred to the university hospital, which was quite nice.
Okay. Was there anything in that process that you thought afterwards that I would have want that differently, or more involvement, or in other ways support? Or did you think this is actually quite a clean cut process?
I think we probably could have made that collaboration even stronger, actually, to help us drive each other to also publishing more research on it after markets. So we've published now, I think, almost 3 papers, but I think it could have been more, and we could have leveraged that a bit more in hindsight.
Also to get more visibility in market, I guess, of the fact that you're associated with it.
Exactly, yeah. I think that could have been pushed harder.
Yeah. Julia, I know you're in the middle of this process, and we spoke about it beforehand. How does this sound to you? Like, how does this process sound? Would that be something that you would strive for as well?
Yeah. So we are in the middle. I think my KTO is somewhere in the audience. So yeah, I think it's quite a process. So you just need to kind of buckle up for it. I think the difficulty is that as a first-time founder, you don't quite know ahead of time what you need. At least that was my case. So it took us several iterations to understand what kind of business we need to build, what do we need from the university, and that created a lot of headache for both sides of the table. So in hindsight, I wish there was some easy way to know that earlier. Yeah, so that was probably my biggest learning out of this. So if there's anybody in the audience who wants to start a startup, I would definitely recommend building this stuff as early as possible so that you can explain yourself much better from the start.
Yeah. we recognize, I'm curious about you as well, Joseph, we've heard this before, right? So there's a lot of like uncertainty or unclarity, I guess, around the process, and it's different in every university as well, right? So there's no sort of structured way, it's not a clear-cut framework, I guess, to do these types of things, and that's why there's a lot of uncertainty with founders as well in what they're getting themselves into, I guess, in what kind of process. And on top of that, I think what we see is that the process is quite lengthy on average still. So there's definitely, and it comes back in our strategy to kind of speed things up. That's definitely one of the things we want to address, because the sooner you're out there and have things sorted, the more you can focus on your business, right? Joseph, how do you look at this?
Certainly, lots of determination is needed to just get through this whole process. And in our first months or more than a year, determination and patience was again key components to just turn Proteon into a company that reached funding eventually. But everything was pending on something that's totally beyond our control, and that was license agreement that didn't have any clear process to follow. We had to iterate again and again, and gently and respectfully remind that we're still here waiting for the license agreement.
You are, yeah. How long has it been for you?
More than a year.
More than a year.
More than a year, and I think small subsidies were mentioned as one of the not so great instruments. In this case, a small subsidy that we managed to attract actually helped us traverse this period of nothing happening, really, just waiting for something.
Yeah, okay. Great. I mean, you see obviously this shared denominator of speed, right? And I think that's something that we really need to talk about a bit further. I want to move on to the next sort of topic, which is more AI specific. And I have a few questions there. I'm thinking of which one to ask. But for me, the interesting bit is that, how do you build a company when there's so much hype around AI, right? I mean, you're all AI sort of native companies. How do you distinct yourself from being different in markets? Like, what's your moat, I guess? What is your key differentiator? And I know also, Jacqueline, you had a lot of competitors as well with sort of different, and it's very difficult, I think, for clients to kind of observe. So what are we looking at? What's your credibility, I guess? Maybe Julia, you can start on that topic.
Sure. I think our case is quite easy. I think your AI models are only as good as your data, and we have access to fantastic data, and that is what enables our entire business. But just in our trip last week, we heard very wise words that AI models are becoming a commodity. So you cannot really surprise anybody anymore with, we have the best model or the deepest model or something and something. So for us, 100% data.
Data, yep. Joseph?
In our case, it's the very particular niche applications that we're doing. Yeah, the pharma companies, that's where we are compared to, are doing like technically similar things, but towards developing new drugs. So they're not really competing in this. So what we found is that in this particular purely in silico AI manner, no one's doing it. There are companies who do this, that they take a patient sample, test it in a lab on Petri dishes. That there are several like that, and they basically provide a similar output at 10x or much larger expense.
Yep.
Than we do, but that's, I think that's our special thing.
Okay, so for you, it's particularly in the application, for you in data. How's it for you, Jacqueline?
It's been interesting for us because it's changed a lot. Having started the company like 5-6 years ago now, before the whole AI boom came. So in the beginning, we were also all about our own models and also our data sets, and then we started realizing, okay, things are really shifting very quickly, and we had to kind of move up the stack. So getting more into the application side of things rather than the foundational side of things, which especially in healthcare is still very underexplored. So we got a lot of competitors coming in with the release of ChatGPT, but what we see in practice is it's not so easy. It's easy to build a cool prototype that works for a 30-second demo conversation, but then something that actually captures edge cases in a complex hospital setting that actually works and that's integrated and that records the audio in a quality manner is not as easy. So that's, I guess, again, the application layer. Also distribution has been important for us.
Yep.
So you can build a cool demo on a web app, but nobody wants to open 5 different apps to just complete their workflow. So if you are in a strong partnership network with all the systems that are already in use, and you're the one that has access to the customer, then that puts you in a strong position, also gives you access to more data. That strengthens that. Yeah, and I had a third one, which I have forgotten. But just last mile delivery, I guess, when customization to make that actually applicable.
And did you work with the medics from the very start?
Yeah, so because we were basically spun out from the hospital, everything was first conceptualized within the hospital setting and then spun out from there.
I think that this is also one of the distinctive factor that supports the startup success.
Yep.
And one thing I forgot to mention, I think that's one thing that worked well for us too.
To work directly with.
Yes, because that's what I started hearing from the environment, that getting a conversation with the medic is a challenge.
Yeah.
And we have it from the start.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like people value training data sets, so this is about the same value.
Yeah. Right. And if you talk about customers, right? So is it then easier to kind of start your market in the Netherlands, because that's where is there more accessibility to local clients compared to international clients? Because obviously, and I know, Julia, we spoke about, international, like go global from day one, I guess, right? How does that relate to having your first customer in the Netherlands, or what's the choice there, right? Is that, Joseph, is that a consideration for you, that you want to start in the Netherlands as a home market and then expand, or is it just a global play from the get-go?
For us, it was a natural start, because that's where we started with our own colleges, and that's where we had the network built. But I think one of my friends, we worked together on a software development. Then he said, in the Netherlands, you can everyone is excited about what you're doing, but you can talk yourself until you run out of money with those people. So we quickly learned the lesson that yes, everyone is excited, they want to use it, but if we want to get money a little quicker, then we also need to take a look abroad.
Yeah. Okay. Julia, you probably have a different approach. Like, your market seems to be international.
Yeah, our market is very specific because luckily there aren't that many people in the world with severe paralysis. So in Netherlands is not going to be our first market, that's for sure. We're running a market access study right now to understand which markets are most favorable for the conditions that we're targeting. But it's unlikely going to be the Netherlands, because the level of clinical evidence here that's required for reimbursement is extremely high. Last time I checked, I also don't see any implant companies in the Netherlands. So we're working with partners that are also distributed across the world: Germany, Switzerland, US, a lot.
Cool. All right. I'm going to quickly move into the investment bit for a short while, and then we have some time for questions. Now, this morning, you guys probably didn't see, but you did, Joseph. There was some sort of like mixed messages, I guess, around early stage capital, right? Is it available? Is it not? Is it plentiful? Is it not plentiful? How do you look at the early stage capital availability in the Netherlands?
Well, regarding the small subsidies, I think there are quite a plenty. There's not always a very, very good fit. Yeah, there are these eligibility criteria, so you always have to look for the exact window where you can ask, and you can still ask, and you're out of the game. Being too old or whatever reason. But there are quite some opportunities, especially for the starting phase. That's what it looks to me. Everyone is excited about starting something new. Continuing the stuff, that's more challenging. That's where I totally agree with the talks in the first half. Yeah, this kind of is on the funding has not a gap. It's just slowly dissipating.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so there's a lot of public. I mean, Jacqueline, you're already in that phase, right? So do you notice that sort of initial funding has dried up and now you're in a more difficult spot regarding attracting capital?
I think that the middle bit is the hardest. So I think I agree with you. I think that like pre-seed convertible notes or government funding is quite accessible when you have like a new idea and you need a small ticket just to get it going. But then when you're between that phase and the Series A phase, then I think it gets really hard because then people are hesitant to join in on something that's already been funded by someone else, and then it starts becoming actually surprisingly important where you place those first tickets from, and that like determines your whole trajectory, which is interesting. I think there is a bit of a lack of support in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Okay.
Reminds me a bit of the market chasm that is often mentioned. Yeah, you have this elephant, and then there's this gap called chasm, which is typically referred to a market that you need to cross from early adopters to late adopters. But now we kind of see that it's also in the funding landscape that the early funds are there, then there's a chasm, and crossing it is a challenge. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's backed up by some evidence that we've done in the tech leap research as well. Julia, for you, obviously, since you still have to get your first sort of funding round, right? And since you're internationally sort of orientated, does it make more sense for you to get your capital from outside the Netherlands? And is it something you would look at?
Yeah. So. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about the EU versus US capital. So it doesn't make sense to to go for US capital because we're not currently looking to relocate to the US, and as far as I understand, that is kind of a prerequisite for that. We have very carefully talked to some of the VCs in EU, and of course there are EU subsidies that you can go for. But currently, we have been talking to people in the Netherlands, and I hope we'll be able to secure that. And see what's going to be required for the next stage.
Yeah, cool. All right, I have a few minutes left, so I want to open up the floor for some questions if you have one. So please raise your hand. Yep. Should be working.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for the founder on the right, because the comment was interesting. So can you maybe highlight what initial tickets are good, which ones are not so good, and which ones to avoid if you are in the early phase?
Thank you.
That's a good question. I think maybe slightly related to your point now, what we learned also going on the US trip in 2024 is that when you get the very early funding in Europe, then you can't really go to the US in between. Then you first have to get to Series A stage. They first want to see 1 million ARR and some serious growth before the US investors want to get involved. And then European investors typically have lower valuations, lower ticket sizes. So then you kind of find yourself in this, almost stuck in this European landscape until you reach that milestone, which then if that is something that you want to do can be a bit limiting. Where I found from the stories that I've heard, it's easier to then if you get your first ticket out in the US with higher valuations and higher ticket sizes, to then later get a European investor on board is easier that way around. But otherwise, you have to first reach the big milestones before you can get.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. And we see the same thing. And we get that advice as well to founders, right? To either go very early or wait and build your European business case and get your European clients before you go to the US. And in between is a very difficult sort of route to go to. Any other questions? Yep, up in the back. I'm gonna throw it because that's the whole idea of doing that. There you go.
Thank you so much. As academic spin-offs, and your cap table looks probably different because institutes, whatever hospital you have on the cap table. In your conversations with private VCs, have you experienced any challenges there by looking at the cap table, and how many shares does the academia has in your startup?
Great question. Okay, so equity and universities on the cap table. How do we think about that?
Maybe I can quickly mention that. So that's exactly what I mentioned earlier, that being educated and informed about what is required by VCs or what VCs prefer, what makes your life easier raising money, was very important for us. So it was very helpful to talk to the VCs before finalizing the terms of the license deal, which we're still in the process of. But that for us was a very important point. So we were more relaxed on some other terms of the license agreement. But for that, we wanted to drive the stake of the university as low as possible for this very reason.
Joseph, do you have anything to say?
I do not have much to add because we do not have the Knowledge Institute in the cap table at all. So, and I think it's a fair arrangement because we also did not receive any additional support from them. So maybe if they acted like accelerator program, so gave us an office, they gave us some legal support, then that would make sense.
Yep.
Since nothing came, I'm very fine with 0%.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure you are. Thank you. By the way, there's sort of like standardized deal terms, right? That the universities and the universities of the Netherlands have put together in collaboration with TechLeap as well. There's a new set of terms that has been developed. It will actually be presented next week by the firm Ingenhouse, who does a lot of IP arrangements for sort of top tier tech companies and academic spin-outs as well. That's sort of a fast track term sheet, which is really interesting and is actually quite different from the term sheet that is currently there. So if you are from universities and you want to attend that session, come and see me. There's a few limited spots still available for that morning session on the 10th of June. That's where it will be presented, along some of the insights that I try to present here as well. So that's just before the Hello Tomorrow conference. Maybe, I know we're a little bit over time, but we can. Just one last word from the founders. And maybe, because there's obviously a few startup founders here, or at least some wannabe founders. What is your piece of advice for any sort of PhD student in the room who wants to start a company in the next 2 years?
I would say the learning point is that every step is a first step if it's a step in the right direction, and we just need to put one in front of another, and have the courage to make all those first steps.
Thank you. Julia, would you recommend any sort of PhD student to get going with this?
Sure, definitely. I guess one thought that I would share is to think big. Also, when you're negotiating the license agreement, something that I recently heard from an advisor was that when you talk about these things, it's important to keep in mind that at some point you are going to likely have to compete on a global level. And then the license terms that are good for the Netherlands may not be relevant anymore, because you would have to be competing with somebody coming out of the US, for example, where the license terms there are completely different and favoring founders a lot more. So these are considerations that you should think of really early on, because that will determine where you can and cannot go down the line.
Great advice. Thank you, Julia. Jacqueline.
Yeah, very much agree with that thought. And then also very early on, I would be critical of yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses, and surround yourself with people that can complement that and that can advise you appropriately and also support you, because it's a long, hard journey.
It sure is. Thank you so much, all three of you, for attending the panel and taking the time out, because I know it's a hugely busy schedule you guys have. So really appreciated you being here. Give them a big hand of applause.
Thank you.
Then we move on straight to the second panel, which is the investor panel. And we again have three amazing panelists here. And I'm going to introduce you quickly. Sophie Heijenberg from Investor at Graduate Ventures is here with two people. And then we have, and we've seen those before, Dimitri Jarnikov, the Senior Director of Data Science at Prosus. and only one of the few people that look better in real life than on their photo on LinkedIn. And last but not least, Thomas Hannes, you've seen him as well, partner at Lumo Labs, who will be on stage as well. So welcome them. Have some water. All right. Now, we talked a little bit before, right? So we're going to do another 25 minutes of this. You can introduce yourself, obviously, and your focus also for which sort of stage you invest in. Maybe a little bit about your firm. You guys had an opportunity already to talk about that. But maybe for you two, what is the one thing you think founders get wrong in building their company, academic startups, in building their company from the get-go? Those are for you two. For you, I'll give a little bit more time for an introduction.
You want me to start that?
Yep.
My name is Sophie. I'm part of Graduate Ventures. We are a pre-seed and a seed investment fund. So we have two different funds. And we invest in Dutch startups across health tech, AI, climate tech, and deep tech. And preferably companies have a link to a university, which means that they're either a spin-off or can be set up by alumni founders later in their career. Also looking for ambitious founders, huge markets. same, I think. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Dimitri.
So straight to the question.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah. Well, you can, if you have any additional information about yourself, you can.
No. I think I cannot best your comment about me looking better than my picture. So let's just keep it here. I think looking at spin-off. By the way, I want to make sure that we're very clear on terminology here, because there are two things. Somebody has developed an idea in the university and decided to make a company out of it, or somebody was in the university while deciding to make a company of it, right? So in my mind, these are two different things. Because if you've got an idea, basically you've got something you want to develop, you need to, and your idea becomes a bit of your mold, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just happen to be in a university, and yes, it gives you opportunities with networking, it opened a door, you've got access to data, for example, and so on, this is a very different story, right? So specifically, if I focus on the first kind, the biggest challenge is to see the difference between having a good idea and actually having a business.
Yep.
And I think that people got very easily married to their idea, and especially in academia. And I'm very careful here not to blame people from academia, because we are selected for having a bit of messiah complex, believing that what we're doing is right, and everyone will need to benefit from it. And I think that this quite often prevents people from really moving forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and we're not going to go there, but I've also spoke to scientists who actually redirect their research to kind of fit their potential company idea, right? So there is some sort of like interaction between, and maybe Max can actually talk to that, between doing your research and then developing your company in parallel, and what is sort of like involved in that process. So it's an interesting one.
I'll jump in the
Thomas,
question.
yeah, Thomas, please. Yeah.
So what do I think many people get wrong is what I talk to many founders in SPE often in academic spin-outs, I often see that there is the thinking that this is the end of the journey. So that you have a license agreement, we spun out, we have a startup, that's the end. But it's actually the beginning of the journey. A very exciting journey, a very cool journey. There is nothing more than who I admire than founders, but it's also a very hard journey.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see that, for example, is cap tables. A cap table is meant to work for the company. A cap table is not meant to reward people that contributed in the past, but are going to contribute in the future. So these are tangible examples of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I see going wrong after.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting point. And also maybe a good thing that they don't know what's ahead of them, because otherwise they might not even start, I guess, right? You hear that often as well. Just to get going, I think, and also maybe looking back to the previous panel, you've listened to that, obviously. Do you have any sort of first thoughts about when you listen to the founders? Is it something that is in line with how you thought already, or are there some new sort of elements in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to hear, of course, that some things take ages to accomplish, right? I think we all have opinions on that, on how we can make spin-offs more smooth, make sure that they are, that they can focus on building their business, because that's actually what they signed up for eventually. So, and I think a few mentions about the funding ecosystem are very true as well. I do have some thoughts on that, but in general, I think super cool for them that they took the leap and started building.
Yeah. Any from you guys? Anything that stood out?
I have to be careful because 2 of the founders we backed.
I know you are. Yeah.
And the third one seems interesting as well, so I might have a coffee afterwards.
Excellent. That's what we like.
I think I align with what they say, and also the learnings from Outscriber and Proteon that we see. I think we are also a startup, so we are also learning from them. So it's feedback that we take very carefully, and we try to incorporate in our business model as well going forward. Hopefully, Jacqueline and Joseph look back at us in a couple of years and say, okay, well, they were a meaningful part of our journey. But I think I see what they say. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Before we get a little bit deeper into the academic spin-offs, I want to talk, and we spoke about it before, about the difference between an AI spin-off and an AI native startup, right? That actually develops outside of university environments. What are the differences between those 2 companies? Do they need to focus on different things or the same things? Dimitri, what is your thought on that?
Yeah, so I think it, referring to what I said before, with the AI spin-off, it's all about idea, and it needs to be developed, and it needs to take time, right? So basically, what we discuss is with us investors need to actually be a bit more patient with saying, okay, this needs to kind of grow before it can be turned into proper business, and we don't need to focus immediately on revenue, for example, targets. With the AI native, quite often it's more about speed of execution, right? So the speed becomes your mode, and I think that, again, I'm very careful to stay in my lane, right? Because we don't typically deal as Prosus with early stage startups, but I think that the ways of we look and evaluate companies need to be slightly different.
Yeah. Do you see this as well? No?
Yeah, I can align more. It's if you want to build a company based on a large language model wrapper, that's basically the first category. Then you need to have operational excellence. You need to get towards $1 million in revenue very, very quickly, and there's a lot of investors that understand that, because that's the language that the majority of investors speak. Though if you are a company that develops your own algorithms with your own data set, that's something totally different. And you don't. Yes, it would be great if you get to $1 million in revenue very quickly, but it's mainly important that you build a sustainable foundation for your company, and going forward you build a very valuable company. Unfortunately, the majority of investors speak a different language. We worked with graduates a lot of times. We see, but that's also because we are operating in a more scarce world, I guess, and that's a bit of a shame. The future will change. In my opinion, I think the more successful companies of the future are the companies that now are setting up with better foundations, so better IP foundations, because the world changed. So let's see how the future pans out. But I have trust in building those companies based on your own proprietary IP, and these are the market leaders of the future.
Yep.
And large language model wrappers only if you have really, really great operational excellence. I think that's it's a more risky part in my opinion.
Yeah. Sophie, do you look at it the same way? As in, are you more patient with your companies, and do you use different metrics, I guess, for those sort of AI native companies that actually don't do the wrappers, but actually are building some really hardcore AI functionality?
Yeah. I mean, it's a generalizing divide, obviously, right? I mean, what we now classify as AI native might also consider very deep IP, but indeed, just to keep it going, yeah, definitely. I think what's interesting about us is that we can invest in both. So we try to also look at it from a portfolio construction model, that we can be exposed to both risks, right? So if you have a handful of companies in your portfolio that might take much longer than others to commercialize, basically to reach certain milestones, then you can balance out that effect by making sure you also invest in some companies that might do have the distribution mode and just go faster to balance out the risk. So I think from a VC perspective and also a founder perspective, it's interesting to think about what's the strategy behind the fund, right? And does my company fit in there? Because otherwise the conversations will get hard at a certain point in time. But I definitely see that. And it's not only AI, right? We also invest in deep tech, quantum technology, new materials and stuff like that. And that has the same kind of life cycle. So I think it's more, as Thomas was saying, a problem that the market in general, or maybe funds that don't work a lot with spin-offs and high, how do you call it, strong IP companies basically have, still need to be educated more to unlock more funding for this segment.
So there's some to say for specialized investors in this particular type of area, right? I'd say because it requires a different mindset and different set of criteria, I guess, to look at them. A generic question more around the system, and you're in it, Dimitri. Obviously, you're in the university system as well, right? You're also a professor, and I know you have like multiple hats. If you could change like one thing about like the Dutch university spin-off system as a whole, right? So the ecosystem around it, where do you think the most of the improvement will come from? It's a very broad question.
Yeah, it's a broad question. So I think it's basically what needs, in my opinion, to happen is we need to have a structure that helps people with an idea to execute on it faster, right? So you need to have probably like a single front door where people say, okay, if you want to start a company, this is how you do it, this is how we support you. If you need to have a license for IP, this is like the rules very simply laid out. If you want to have support from university, either it's a fund, again, IP, maybe usage of a lab, this is like term sheet. So we take a small portion, you basically do whatever you need. Simplify building relationship with industry. I mean, some anecdotal evidence where university takes 4 years to sign the papers, so we can start collaborating, like it's ridiculous, right? So I think that a lot of people would benefit from clear rules and just support on saying, okay, we are not preventing you, we're helping you. This is one. The second thing, and I'm going to be a bit provocative here, I think that universities in Netherlands are insanely focused on IP. Like, yes, all this insane discussion, it's our IP, how we use IP. We basically have university with a stack of IPs that never get used. So the question is, why do you fight the most fierce battles over something which actually doesn't matter to you? And I think that if I can change something, it will be that. Stop hoarding IPs for no reasons.
Thanks, Dimitri. Very clear message. Thank you very much. Thomas, can you top that in terms of provocative?
Nah, look, maybe a different angle. I think what I would say in the whole system is missing is a bit of acknowledgement as well. Acknowledgement that these are huge opportunities, and what I see in the market is that there is within universities there's really good research. Really good research was also mentioned in the presentations, but not all academics know. Okay, can spin this out, maybe build a business around this. Well, if you see in the US, everybody's doing research with that in mind. But maybe even bigger is the fact that the best entrepreneurs which are around are not eyeing these technology. There's no mutual understanding of what's currently happening, and that's a bit of a shame, because if you can bring those two together, and you can keep the academic founder in with who understands the problem, understands the technology, and the founder who can and startup founder who has experience, had maybe 1 or 2 startups before, and bring that forward, and bring that towards market. That combination is nuclear. And in the US that happens all the time. Well, I'm not a US expert, but what I read is that their research is not it's on par. If you look at the university, our university is definitely challenging US universities. So on academical level. So if you can, and we also have very good startup founders. And it's not just the startup founders themselves. I don't need to have the former founder or CEO of iGen, but the former founder or CEO of iGen knows a lot of people. So if he acknowledges that, then maybe you can say, I have this guy who was working against a glass ceiling. He might be a perfect fit for this startup. That would be great if we have that set up. So there's a broader acknowledgement within the ecosystem that these opportunities exist. And that would be great.
Yeah.
And that would be great for all parties.
Yeah, yeah. Though you said it this morning, and this morning actually, I think in Arjan's talk as well, creating teams, very powerful teams, I guess, that's something that is currently lacking. I think a lot of the times the academics are working on their own without much sort of external support or insights or even skin in the game, I guess, from other people that could really help and benefit those companies. Yeah. Sophie, what do you see in...
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy to blame deal terms, right, and universities for all of this. I mean, we still see cap tables that are terrible, and I mean, imagine that you're a company with a university that owns 25 or 30%, and you're competing with a company that has a cap table where the university owns 4% max. Then it's tough to get ahead, especially in the VC world where you're going to dilute much more when you raise more funding. So that's definitely a problem, but I fully agree that it's also a culture problem. So it's not only about the quality of deal terms or the quality of IP, but also that commercial spirit and maybe even the mindset that in other countries people go do a PhD with the idea to start a business, like from day one, right? They're not doing a PhD just to publish papers, but there's like different kind of archetypes of people that go into that track. And I think, making sure that we get that entrepreneurial mindset in our university system more, and it's happening. I do see so many like new studies or curriculums that are incorporating entrepreneurship more at the core next to research. So I think, if we do that more, just make it even bigger and make sure that people start going into research with the idea that they can become a founder, then great things can come out of that.
Yeah, cool. All right, I think because a lot has been said, and I think there might be some reactions from the crowd here. Just going to pause here and give an opportunity to you guys to ask maybe some follow-up questions even on what's been said, or is everybody now dumbfounded and defeated? No? No questions? There you go.
Thank you. Really great insights. I'm from a research background, and if I look at my former colleagues, most of them are working on great things, but probably, they don't want to become founders, and probably a lot of them shouldn't become founders. But that leaves a lot of technology on the table. So to what extent does the inventor themselves have to be a founder to be successful? And if not the inventor themselves, who could take their place on the technology side?
Yeah, good question. And indeed, a situation that we see quite often. I think a bit of two answers to it. I do see quite often that there's like what we then call a chief scientist officer, for example, which is the scientist behind the technology oftentimes, that then goes into that does decide to go into the startup role, but has a very more of a visionary role, right? So that's probably not the person that should grow into a CEO position. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes indeed not. So thinking about team construction in a way that the strengths of that person can still work out in a business context and not a research context is, I think, step one. So I think that already then we open up a big group of people that might think like entrepreneurship is not for me, but under the right conditions it might. That's one. And two, there is indeed a very interesting way to think about like what kind of people. I think Thomas highlighted it too. What pool of people can we tap into to join forces with those scientists and maybe build a management team like around the technology and bring it out of the university in that way. And that's of course a bit more tricky because then the incentives should be aligned and the scientists should still feel comfortable with their IP, which is oftentimes their baby, right, being brought to market. But there's definitely a way there, and I'm still figuring out how we can play a part in that ecosystem too. Like how do we find these people? How do we match them together? But I think there is a big role to play for all of us there.
All right. Yeah, I have to cut. Any last thoughts, guys? No, are you good?
Maybe a bit of a shout out. Yep. There are some people from RVO here. I think we need to cherish what the role that they are playing, because they are actually making this happen, and that little money which is available, it comes from them for a large part, and they are playing a big role in making this whole TTT possible for a large part, and that's something that we need to cherish. And I think it's very valuable. So I hope there are still some people from our view. Yeah, there are. So yeah, let's acknowledge that and see how important that is, because it is from my point of view, it is really important.
Cool. Yeah. Thomas, great end to this conversation. Thank you so much for joining all.
Thank you.
All right. All right, and we're running out of time, so we're actually quite short. I'm going to introduce Max, and come on stage because he has a talk, and then Arian will take over for the third one. Everyone knows Max, was he Casper AI, CTO, co-founder, and also, and it's funny, like, I don't know how you've been introduced usually, but for me it's like you're the founder of Casper. Not anymore the professor at the University of Amsterdam, right? So, and I think, I don't know whether for you that has changed, and you're more introduced now as a founder rather than an academic. But I'll leave it up to you and your talk. Thank you.
I get the personalities now. Okay. Second failure. Startup should fail, right? That's the thing. Okay. I just want to point out, like, historically, what an important time we live in. It's just hard to maybe realize, but we are living in a similar time as when the Industrial Revolution happened, when human and animal labor got replaced or augmented by machine labor, and now we live in a time where human intelligence gets replaced or augmented with artificial intelligence. And I think when we look back in 20 years, it's the ChatGPT moment is going to be as significant as the invention of the steam engine. And in fact, I think we live in a time when we'll see a virtuous cycle happening, where the AI revolution and LLMs and everything will create new materials, which is what my business is in. For instance, new materials to create more energy or better semiconductors, which will feed back into the AI revolution, new chips, which will go in a circle. And so I was thinking when I started CUSP that materials are really at the core of everything, and we should make sure that we become really good at that in the Netherlands and in Europe. So I think it is a strategic core, and I'm just going to give you a few examples of where materials play a foundational role. For instance, in health, new drugs, vaccines, antibiotics. These are materials in the sense of sort of molecules, if you wish. The energy transition, batteries, solar cells, nuclear fusion, wind, sustainable fuels, ESF. All of these are rooted in materials, and progress is measured in new materials. Environment, PFAS removal, green mining, biodegradable plastics, climate, carbon dioxide removal, carbon neutral building materials, and so on. Some of the most important economic choke points, for instance, rare earth materials or minerals. Chips may be super important for Europe as a strategic economic sector, like high-K dielectrics, photoresist materials, high thermal conductors, etc. Defense, I'm not going to fantasize about that. I hate it, but it's necessary, unfortunately. But you can be very creative in materials for defense. Yeah, so I think it's important to realize that materials are essential for Europe's autonomy. I'm just going to go very briefly to show you two examples of how AI in the sciences has kind of shaped my thinking. This was when I was working with Microsoft Research on building a digital twin for the planet, basically for the atmosphere, for the Earth's atmosphere. So the meteorologists have collected huge amounts of data about the weather, and that allows us to predict the weather with neural networks rather than with solving the Navier-Stokes equation, which is the partial differential equation which describes the atmosphere, plus a whole bunch of other equations. And so numerically predicting the weather using integrating these equations is actually very expensive. There's supercomputers that do that, but with a neural network, once you've trained it on that data, you can do this 10,000 times more efficient and more accurate, which is, which the meteorologists had to get used to too. And the second one is a very cool thing that Microsoft developed, but we now have it too in CUSP, which is a model to basically generate molecules in the same way as diffusion models that we all know generate images and videos these days. So you start with a blur of nothing, and you click a button, and then you say, I want a material with these properties, and it will generate for you 10,000 of those materials in a fraction of a second, right? And so there you go, and you do many of those, and of course you have to analyze them afterwards in the computer, etc. But this is the magic of machine learning. So I'll tell you a little bit about CUSP AI. So first a bit about the company itself. So again, it's about, we believe it is a very foundational. It's very foundational to the societal problems that we face in terms of energy transition, climate, semiconductors, etc. And we want to accelerate it. And this is some statistics which are always out of date. So we started at 2024. That number is stable, I would say. We've raised 220 million. That's definitely out of date. And this summer you will hear more. 80 people in the company. I've just updated. The last number there was 50. So we're really exponentially growing over many locations: Cambridge, Amsterdam, Tokyo, London, Berlin, Singapore, San Francisco. So we're expanding across the world. We have, this number is also out of date, 22 million. That's already much more in terms of revenue. And these are investors and luminaries, which in terms of angels also have decided to support us. And so what have we built? What is our company about? It is about a intelligence engine, a materials intelligence engine, which you can think of as a search engine. So you just write in text, in language, what you want, in material with all sorts of properties, and then there is a engine under the hood that will start to do all sorts of searches and all sorts of computations in order to find that material for you. And so, but it's very important to talk to customers. You cannot do this in a vacuum because the customers have a lot of domain knowledge which you will have to learn about. So typically we go to a customer, they give you the specifications, we generate lots of candidates, then we have something which you can think of as a digital twin to analyze all those candidate materials in a computer. Everything gets sieved down to maybe 10 materials. We go then to synthesis, prediction, and synthesis of the actual material. And then we create experimental feedback, and then we loop around it again. And each one of these phases creates data. The data gets accumulated in a database. Our models get retrained, and next time you go faster around that circle. So here's the platform, and I'll just show you a bit of a demo of how this thing works. Of course, it's constantly under construction, but sort of here is the input. So you give the input of the material that you want. Then you go to this layer, which is the agentic layer. The agent takes in the prompt and will start to define a workflow. And the workflow basically typically starts with going to the data layer. We have contracts with lots of the publishers. They'll go to the database, see if there is already materials that satisfy the properties. If not, they go generate materials, as I just shown. And then there's all these analysis tools, property predictors, MD simulators, lots of these tools. Even up to the process and device level itself. Once that is done, you go to synthesis. Now we work with a lot of high throughput self-driving labs around the world, like A-Star Labs in Singapore we have a contract with, but also Amolf in Amsterdam. We are doing spin coating experiments for perovskites with Amolf. We have DTUs. We work with labs in in Cambridge, etc. And then finally, when all that is done, the feedback is integrated, material comes out, and that's fed back to the user, and then you might have to go through the whole thing again. And so here's a little like a demonstration. So so the first thing is you go and type your thing, and it says generate high porosity MOFs with an electronically inert metal node suitable as a low-K dielectric semiconductor interconnect layers. Relax these structures, check if they are valid using MOF checker, and compute void fraction. Okay, so that's a typical sort of search you can give it, and then it goes do stuff. Okay, so now it says let's build a actual workflow. So it's making a plan of what it is going to do, and it's executing, and it's going to generate materials. So it says, okay, let me generate materials with my generative model, and it's doing this, and then once it's done that, let me relax these structures to the ground state, which is actually a machine learning model which does that. Once it's done that, it says, okay, now let's check with some property predictors whether these materials make sense. Are they stable, for instance, or do they fall apart in water, or things like that. That's done. And okay, this takes a little bit of time, I guess. This is not real time. There's 2 places where we sped it up. The whole thing takes about 2 hours or so. But this is the work of a PhD student for years. That's what at least our chief science officers tells us. Typically, these things actually take longer because there's some calculations that actually take very long. But for this particular application, we didn't have to do them. Okay, so now they're going to collect the results. This is all real time if you see this happen. Okay, so these are the ones that survived. One was actually dismissed. It's not good enough. It can't exist. And then it's giving you a report of the things that it found. And then you go to another tab. And then you say, okay, how does it look like what I've actually created? And there we go. So this is the actual metal organic framework. This is a compound which won the Nobel Prize, or a class of molecule that won the Nobel Prize in last year. And so, here you can see that's the actual molecule. Now the next thing is, okay, go to your database and get me a synthesis recipe for in a lab. So it goes to, it looks up similar materials. Of course, the same material is not in the actual databases. If it looks similar materials, how were they successfully generated in a lab? And it will then put this together, reason over that, and come up with 2 new recipes that you can then try in the lab. We didn't try these 2, so I can't say they're good. But our chemists looked at them and they say, well, they're at least realistic. Okay, so that's the agentic system. This is under constant construction. We train sub-agents that do specific tasks that get called by the mother agent. We get now also into the training of the mother agents, which is, of course, extremely expensive because these are huge models with many billions of parameters. And so this is the game that constantly moves and changes. And now the next thing I will do is I will tell you a little bit about the story of COSP and the things that we learned. So the first thing, of course, you need to find yourself a co-founder. This was in the last panel actually discussed. It's really important. This person should not be a copy of you because, I'm a nerd, I'm a scientist, I'm a very bad CEO. So that I can tell you that. So I find myself a CEO, Chad, much younger than I am, but he's my boss, right? So leave your ego at home, also really important. And this is the person that you'll be talking to many hours every day, right? So, you have to really, be a good partner to each other. So very important. Also, the number is important. I think 2 is actually ideal. 4 is too many. You see many of these founding teams break apart because they get disagreements and then there's some walk and it gets all chaotic. So 2 is really nice because you get a very stable team. Then about the actual team itself. Your team is everything, right? It's not you. It's not about you. It's about your team, right? It's really important to realize this. So actually, we set 20% apart in terms of stock options for the team, which reduces our part, of course. But it's really important to have a fantastic team. So be serious about hiring the best possible team, and don't lower the bar because once the bar is low, it's very hard to get it back up. So the other thing is, don't think you can do everything. So sometimes academics think they can do everything, and I fell into that trap myself with my previous startup as well. sales, how hard can it be, right? It's like, you go to somebody and you sell, this is great, you should buy this, this is a fantastic product, and you go all technical. There's people just do this, they don't want to buy it. And then you get somebody who actually does sales, you think, this is BS, all the stuff that this person is saying, but the customer buys what you want them to sell. So, okay, there is a skill there that I don't see, and certainly I don't have, but it is very, very important. Okay, so advisors. So we have a really excellent advisory board, and advisors can help you in many things. Of course, they can help open doors because they're typically big names. So they give one call to someone and say you should talk to discuss people, and then they talk to you. So that's really important. But they can also really help you if they're active. They can help you figure out how to penetrate certain markets. So Martin van den Brink is from ASML, previous CTO, president of ASML, is on our board, and I have the honor of speaking to him every 1 or 2 months, and he really helps me think through penetrating this very difficult market of semiconductors. So investors, we talked about it. So investors are not your enemy. It's really important. You hear this horror story about investors that take over your company and take control of your company and make your life horrible. That should not be the case. So you really pick your investors carefully. They should be your best friends. They should help you in this journey. They have a huge amount of accumulated knowledge about how to run a company. They have a huge network. And so pick the investors that really are willing to put time and help you on this journey. And for us, it has been transformational to have this network behind me. And of course, you want a diverse set. You want angels and VC, but also strategics. And the strategics, of course, you only want when they actually become your customer. Culture, it's really important. So we have thought very hard about our culture. We don't want to do damage to the world. So basically, we don't work on defense, and we don't work on oil and gas extraction. We really want to work on things and spend our time on things that makes the world better. This is ingrained in our DNA. Sometimes it's hard because you have to leave huge deals on the table, but the advantage is that you can build an absolute excellent team of people, and that can compete with the best teams in Silicon Valley, but don't have to pay the salaries that they pay in Silicon Valley, because people want to do meaningful things. Well, not everyone, but many people do want to do meaningful things. And then think big, be ambitious, sometimes scary, large amounts of money involved, but you gotta, leave your humble European or Dutch, personality at home. You gotta think big, otherwise you're not gonna make it, and you're gonna be eaten by the people that do think big. You want to have the vision to change the world, and definitely VCs in Silicon Valley want to hear that visionary story. The super rational objective story doesn't cut it. You gotta dream big, and that's what they want to hear, in my view. Laser focused, so solve a real and important problem. Have a religious belief in your mission, because sometimes things don't go so well, and then your mission will drive you, keep you going. But also, customers are king, right? So if things don't work, you gotta change. You gotta pivot to something that does work. So you always move in the direction of where people want to pay for stuff. That's really important. Otherwise, you'll not achieve anything. And then the relationship. I guess I have one leg in university and one leg in startup, and it's really different, right? It's like it's not a university, a startup, by no means, right? It's about teamwork. It's not about you. Academics tend to, they have big H indexes and therefore big egos. It's all about reputation, and that's for academics that works. In a startup, it doesn't, because it's about a team that needs to achieve something. If you take the credit for your team will leave you, right? So that's not what you want to do. Let's see. Yeah, okay, I think I've said everything. And then, so there is you gotta blow your trumpet, right? So you wanna have a regular drumbeat of media posts, blog posts, papers, podcasts, newspapers. It's actually a lot of work to do it, but it's very important because people need to know you around the world. And just lose the hyper-objective European scientist attitude. It's not very helpful in this business. And so let's see, what is this one? Big tech. yeah. So okay. So different things, right? So I don't think there's one thing is better than the other, but they're all different, right? So I think university is fantastic for its own things. If you want to go in a direction that nobody else wants to go with a very long time horizon, you want to work on the inside, what's on the inside of a black hole, go ahead, be a professor and do it there. There's probably not going to be a VC that's going to fund that, but maybe NWO will fund it for you. So and then big tech, it's a very stable job, often very well paid. And it used to be very good. Nowadays I think things have changed a bit because of the LLM race that's on. But and then for me, I think startups are one of the best things because they're fast, they're dynamic, always changing. High adrenaline, and you got to really change the world, which is I find extremely exciting. Okay, so now I want to end with a few ideas that I want to just throw in here. So in fact, so on June 16, we have the opportunity to talk to the cabinet, including Rob Jetten, about a new Alice Institute. And so what we are missing in the Netherlands, I feel, is an institute where absolutely the best researchers in the world that we actually producing in the Netherlands are and do top-notch research. It's very hard to keep them because the salaries, on the other side are just 10 times higher, right? So it's like you cannot compete on salaries. But what we can compete on is giving the people that are in such an institute the total freedom in terms of their contract to start a startup and help them build the best startups in the world. And in fact, an Alice Institute could, take a small little. So it could be funded maybe this is the most important thing to say, could be funded by venture capital and government, but let's say venture capital, there's venture capital here. So my question to you is, would you be willing, or what would it take for you to invest in such an institute where you would then have the first seat when these startups are coming out, and you can use those invested credits, let's say the invested money, you can get it back by taking a piece of the companies that are coming out. If that's an interesting proposition to you, I really want to talk to you, because that might get something like this off the ground. Yeah, so these are some details. I guess I have to start stopping soon. One really important thing is access to compute. So in order for these startup companies to really compete at a global scale, we need to get them plenty of access to compute. Now, of course, we talk a lot about gigafactories. How do we get gigafactories off the ground? There is fear that maybe these GPUs are not used enough. I have a plan. Let companies and startups buy GPUs. You can typically go to one of the big vendors, like the NVIDIAs and the AMDs, and you can say, I want to buy GPUs. And then I'll put those GPUs in a neo cloud, like they say a gigafactory. I've talked to somebody that Kees actually introduced me to. And the deal that you can do is like, okay, you buy all the customer could use up to 100 million on GPUs hardware. We put it in a cloud. It's of course very risky to invest that much. But then if you don't use it all, you can then start selling it on the spot market. And neoclouds are interested in that type of deal, so you completely de-risk it. But you also accelerate the gigafactory, because if we all start to buy GPUs and we all want them to put them in a gigafactory, then I'm pretty sure the gigafactory will be very quickly there. So these kinds of ideas we need in order to get things off the ground. We also need access to test facilities. I want to have access to all the TNO labs. I want a very low threshold to use TNO labs. We may have to build robotics test facilities, self-driving chemistry labs, etc. And we want the government to really become a customer of these startups. So they should start ordering stuff from these startups rather than bring all that money to the big companies that are out there. This is where the innovation happens, at the startups. And there's a whole story about tax. I won't get into this, otherwise I get frustrated, but there's a whole bunch of stuff about tax that we really should change. And then the last thing I want to talk about is AI in society. I am personally worried that as all this is starting to take off, the wealth gap is going to increase. People's jobs will be disrupted, and many people will simply not accept AI to progress at the speed that we need it. And so we have to take the population along in this journey. And it's been on my mind of how can we do that. And one idea that came to mind I'd love to talk more with people about is something like a sovereign wealth fund, where every company will put a tiny bit of their stake into this sovereign wealth fund. Everybody gets an app, and everybody gets a slice of that money, and you can just see, okay, my slice of that money has increased today because these companies are doing really great. And every month you get some dividend paid out, and at the end the accumulated amount goes to your pension, or something like this. But a direct connection between the success of our companies and our entrepreneurs with money that everybody gets on their bank account. Now it's going through taxes, so the government takes it, and then something happens, and then it comes back in a very indirect way. We need to show the people and the world that the money that pays for our wealth, of our welfare, comes from the success of our companies. I guess this is what I was saying. Yep. Okay, and then to conclude, materials are at the very root of many of the problems that we need to solve in today's society. Physical AI, including materials, but also manufacturing, is the next wave after digital AI, which you could call LLMs. I think Europe is very well positioned to take a very significant role in this physical AI. This is just starting. We have a lot of good engineering in Europe. We definitely need better startup and scale-up environment or ecosystem in Europe, and we propose that the Alice Institute could be one of the best startup incubators to do that with the best talent that clusters there. And I think we need to make sure that every citizen is benefiting from the AI boom, and make sure that this increasing wealth gap is not felt in the population. And that's it. I'll end there. I'm going over time a little bit, but okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got to hand over. Thanks so much, Max. Great food for thought, I'd say, and lots of great ideas. So I'm sure a lot of people want to continue to talk about that, me as well. Arian's going to come back on stage because we have one more panel left. Max will be on the panel,
right?
So he'll be sitting there, and there's a few others, and you know who they are.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Hi, good to see you.
Maybe Max, you talk.
Yes, it works. We are running a little bit over time, but it's a great story. So we have one last panel. Very inspiring speech. You talked basically about two things, about CUSP and how a lot of creative ideas on how to bring society further. Maybe I'll give one question about CUSP before we do the panel, because I think there is somebody who has a question for you. Maybe one question on to Max. You already been on the panel? Nobody? Otherwise, I'll give it to you. Sorry.
Thanks, Max. Inspire. You have a Dutch company, right? And why were you never tempted to go to the US while you have a lot of US investors in the past?
Yeah.
And how do you see that in the future?
So it's a Dutch-English company, so we're both in the UK and in the Netherlands, which is, by the way, a good idea, I think, to have it distributed over 2 countries. So yeah, there is every investor will come with their own story why it's important to go to the US or go to Singapore, because our other biggest investor is from Singapore. But we do go set up shop in Singapore, and we do set up shop in the US. But there's also a very good reason to at least keep the, let's say, the research development in Europe, because the salaries are not as crazy as in the US, right? So it's like easily 3-4 times more costly to employ people in the US than to employ them in the Netherlands. And so and the people are just as smart, which is the good part of it, right? So I think there's very good reason to keep lots of your activity in Europe and not move entirely to the US.
Okay. So we move to the last part, to the last panel. I invite you, maybe Max, to sit over there. And then we have a panel of 3, but Liz Duivers from InvestNL Thijs from Top Sector ICT, and Oscar of the Delta Institute. As I understand, Liz, you already have a small presentation you would do. I would like you to reflect a little bit on what Max said about these creative ideas about society. How do you look at Dutch policies? Because the topic of this last panel is Dutch policy. Then I ask Thijs and Oscar to say something, and then maybe Max can reflect, and then we all can ask some questions. So maybe Liz, you can start.
You want to kick off with the presentation? Or?
You would probably want to kick off with the presentation.
Yeah, I think that's maybe easiest. I think I'm going to stand so I can see it. Do you have a clicker?
Stand here behind the counter.
You have a clicker?
I don't, there's the clicker over there.
Thanks.
Can I sit next to you?
Yeah, so I think most of the topics that I'm going to talk about I have already touched upon today, but I might bring a slightly new perspective to one topic about the US and the Netherlands, and I think Max already just talked about it a bit. But before I do it, just a very brief introduction on InvestNL. So we are the National Promotional Institute. For whom doesn't know us, we have, I think, already more than 2 billion assets under management, and we invest in technologies that drive transitions forward. We do that together with co-investors, private investors, but also with the room of Arian, and also with the European Union, so EIC, for instance. And we often collaborate with partners like TNO. We do that for various segments. So here you can see most of the segments. I work for the Deep Tech Fund as a senior investment manager. And the Deep Tech Fund is 250 million at the moment, but we're going to expand. And we invest most of the time tickets around 5 million or up. And sometimes we also step in a bit earlier in the seed stage. But we are there for the long run, so we call ourselves patient capital, and that really is because we try to bring R&D to the commercial market, and as you all know, deep tech takes time and patience, so that's why we offer that to the market. Over the past few years, we've conducted several deep dives, and one of them was AI last year, which you can see here, and I think Dimitri already touched upon it earlier today, saying that when you look at the global AI race, we're not going to win anymore when it comes to the building the foundational models. We're simply too late. But there are certain segments where we can actually do win, or at least become strategically relevant. And that became clear in the deep dive that we did last year. Here you can see that most of the VC funding has been going to the model layer. And I think this is a nice overview, because as an investor, it also shows me that there is a lot of room for the other areas. And those are exactly the segments that came out of the report last year. And Arian already went over them quickly. But as you can see, I think there's a lot of interest and room to play within energy efficient AI hardware, also considering the compute levels that we're getting to. I think two nice examples of that are Accelera and Inatera that we invested in. And then we have a few other segments, for instance, new data streams, like the world model that probably a lot of you know from Pim de Witte, and also physical AI, Max touched upon that, and scientific AI. Those are all areas where we think the Netherlands has the right to play, and we actually have a lot of reasons to do so. So here you can see from the report we identified certain tailwinds, but also some of the headwinds which were described today. And I think what we can see, especially that has been touched upon, is that currently we're lacking capital to grow. And the European market is not the easiest market to scale your business. It's quite fragmented. So I think that brings me to another research that I've been conducting over the last 4 months. I went to the US for a particular reason, because as a deep tech investor, we come across a lot of US interest nowadays. And as you can see here, related to AI, a lot of the AI investments are happening within the US. But then I found this interesting bar on the right, and that showcases that if you look at the full deep tech landscape and you take AI out of the equation, you actually see that we're not that far away from VC funding going to deep tech. So I think that's interesting, and that's maybe also a bridge to this slide, where you can see that US investors are always looking for the next deal or next opportunity. And what we actually see also within the deep tech fund, but also during the time that I spent in the US, that the interest in the Netherlands and deep tech companies is increasing, especially in later stage rounds. And that could be seen as a fear, and it's often described as a fear or a concern, but it also opens up an opportunity. And because the European market is quite fragmented, if we want to build global champions, it actually really could become an interesting opportunity to work more together with these US investors to tap into that market opportunity. Looking into the data, we saw that most of the US investor interest is at the moment concentrated within hardware and AI. And then when you look at the industries, it covers various industries, including health, energy, semicon, and also defense was a topic that's described a lot of the times within the US. So I think getting back to that, AI is within scope of US, and we have a right to play on global investment level. And then I heard the topic already being described here today more often about companies leaving to the US. So that's also something that we included in the research. And what we found is that actually, yes, companies do move to the US, but not their entire parent entity. They actually, what we see as a most common model is that they open a subsidiary to tap into commercial opportunities there. So I think Max already described it very well. US investors don't see a reason for companies to bring all their engineering talent to the US because it costs them a fortune. For them, it makes far more sense to keep the engineering talent within the Netherlands and open up shop to do commercial sales within the US area. And US investors can help with that. Within the report that I'm going to publish next week, we describe all the challenges but also the opportunities that come into play when collaborating with US investors. So I hope that hopefully that gives you some insights in what you can encounter when you can consider making that step, and also what the right timing is to make a step like that. But yeah, there is definitely a lot of reasons why we should not be afraid of the US, but also why we should try to collaborate with them there. I think I touched upon most of it. Perhaps, one important point I want to make is that the reason why we're also trying to bring this message across about promote, protect, and partner is also because I think at this moment we're finally well positioned to do so. And the reason for that is that we currently we're within Europe, but also within the Netherlands, we're significantly increasing the government funding to invest in the companies, which means that we are at the table when companies are going abroad. We have influence, we can help companies navigate that landscape. And also within the US, we have, or the whole diplomatic network, we're doing an excellent job in trying to find the right eligible partners to collaborate with. So we have a lot of intelligence, so to say, on who to work with and who maybe not to work with. So that's why I think we're now well positioned to do so. And with the whole, the new National Investment Institute will be even better positioned to do so. Then about AI, there's also a lot happening on the US side that we could actually leverage. So the government there is investing significantly funding within scientific AI research. And the colleagues in the US are actually doing research on how we can create some transatlantic collaboration to do so. So perhaps more will come out of it. It's still in emerging stages. And finally, I think what was also striking when I was there is that I had a few chats with the leading universities there, for instance, MIT, and they're actually struggling at the moment because the administration is cutting funding, which also showcases that they are finding and looking for new avenues to collaborate. So I think that's also a call to action, that don't look only within borders, but also try to find and collaborate with our partners abroad, because that can actually help us in our scientific advancements. That's it. Oh yeah, and then next week we're going to present and launch the European version of the AI report. So I hope that that gives some insights in what we should focus on, because there's just a lot that we can do. We cannot do it all, but I think this hopefully gives us some guidance on where to focus on. So please come there. It's I think it's open to everyone. Oh, it's not open to everyone.
Okay, thanks, Liz. So what I hear is InvestNL is committed to deep tech, gets more money in, and has a stake on the table if you go abroad to more security. And Hello Tomorrow go there because the European report of the is there. Reflect first, Thijs, Oscar, who wants to go first? Maybe Thijs reflect on Dutch policy and how you vision that from your top sector ICT perspective.
Yes, thank you. And I will keep it short. It's always dangerous to be the one of the last speaks before drinks. But so my name is Thijs Koops. I'm program manager for Digital Holland, formerly known as Top Sector ICT. And we as Top Sector ICT are part of the mission-driven innovation policy of the Ministry of Economic Affairs. We are part of a big framework called the Knowledge and Innovation Covenant, a total budget of 5.8 billion euros in the Netherlands for innovation. And the past few years, you see that there's a lot of course, there's innovation in energy and healthcare, a lot of sectors, and in 52 different kind of technologies that the Dutch government invests in. And 2 years ago, the Ministry of Economic Affairs decided to get more focus and choose 10 priority technologies that we should focus on. And of course, AI and data is one of those priorities. And that's within the National Technology Strategy. So for each of them, these 10 priorities, action agendas were built. And we as a Digital Holland coordinate the action agenda on cybersecurity and on AI and data. And luckily, we don't do that alone. We do that together with a lot of stakeholders, Romanel, InvestNL, TNO, SURF, AI Coalition for the Netherlands. And the idea is to prioritize and make choices. And I think the reports from InvestNL and the position papers from the AI Coalition for the Netherlands also help to make these choices together to see, okay, where do we put maybe not VC money, but definitely public money and subsidy for the next innovation that is needed for AI development. And maybe one point that I would like to stress out here is that it's difficult still from a policy point of view to see the AI development as a more to have a more holistic view on AI development. We now talk with the ministry about AI factories and about coming up with specific LLMs for healthcare sector, for the agri and food sector, for mobility. But the people who we talk about within the ministry about that part of AI development don't have anything to say about the compute and the semicon agenda. And I think it's important for the future that we have a more holistic view on the future of compute and to say, okay, if we would like to be a player also in next generation AI, we need to have the control points also in the deep tech, deep tech startups, and not only in the more application level. So that's what we try to do also within this agenda, to have a holistic view also with data infrastructure, with cloud infrastructure. Yeah, a long way to go, but yeah, I think collaboration is key here, and yeah, it's also good to hear the other panelists and speakers. Yeah, I think we all share the same vision, and it's good to also bring that together. So that's a very short insight from our view.
Thanks. I heard two things: 5.8 billion, something that is a lot of money. And the second thing that I heard was a holistic view. Maybe the last, Oscar.
Yes, the last one. Okay, I'll try to keep it really short. My name is Oscar. I work for the Delta Institute, which is a merger of the AI Delta Plan and herprogrammeerde overheid, which is what are we? We are a public benefit foundation, so we're an aanbiedstichting that is basically, as policy entrepreneurs, we try to see where the leverage points are for different things concerning all of this, concerning innovation and the future wealth. We're doing loads of different things, amongst which the Ellis Institute, we're doing working on a compute strategy. I am actually really deeply immersed in procurement law. I was a primary school teacher 10 years ago, so this is a very big move for me. I'm actually trying to find out where are the actual leverage points in concerning procurement by the government, because it's a massive thing. We're trying to we're like an honest broker trying to get people connected that maybe don't talk to each other so often, so that can be politicians through us with civil servants, or companies and civil servants. So we try to stay in the middle and try to get the process going. So I was very optimistic about Arian's earlier talk that talked about we have a lot of strategies, which is quite bold coming from a person that actually wrote a strategy, but we really need execution, and that's basically what we try to do. Get the right people in the room, try to help frame the words in such a way that people understand it. So also the civil servants, the best example is maybe the Ellis Institute. So we're also trying to understand, to get on paper the way, in a way that the civil servants and the politicians actually get the plan in a good working order. I was also asked to specifically mention NADI, which is a Dutch DARPA or an ARPA organization that we're also helping getting it working. There are many ARPA organizations that are happening now. So there's ARIA in the UK and Sprint in Germany. But it is super important that it is founded well, with the right incentives, with the right people, with the right strategy and the right leading scheme, basically. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So the bottom line is we're like entrepreneurs, but then policy entrepreneurs trying to get things moving. Yeah.
Okay, I heard a complete landscape here. I hear launching customer, procurement, I hear subsidies, I hear investments, and I hear Ellis Institutes and startups. So for the last 10 minutes, I want to open the floor, because my questions are probably worse than your questions. And I will take 10 minutes of questions off the floor to any one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Quick question on with regards to the ARPA or the DARPA. I was told that there is not enough budget at the moment, or there's budget problems.
Yeah.
So curious how that's being solved, because I just heard about the 5.6 billion was 5.8. So
yeah.
There seems to be money.
There is money. There is a specific type of money, but there is also the whole legislative procedure. So that first there have laws have to pass. So actually there is multiple things going on at the same time. Multiple tracks are running. But yeah, it is in the coalition accord. We're in the first time with a minority government. So everything is still under wraps, really unsure about this. But yeah, we're trying to make it happen. That's basically what's going on. Yeah.
Next question. Come on. Not
unsatisfying. So in the coalition agreement, there is $500 million is reserved. So that's what we're trying to aim for, but it's not conclusive yet.
Yeah, and maybe also good to add here is that there's now a task force within the Jette is chairing that task force. I talked about innovation policy, but there's also something like industry policy. So there's a task force building now an agenda, again an agenda, but for okay, what kind of instruments are needed to give a push to industry policy, and I'm certain that NADI will be one of the outcomes of that. So it will take some time, but yeah, I'm sure that there will be money in place for that as well.
Yeah. So my question is, I wonder whether we can combine two different things. So I totally agree with the positive investment-like attitude of today. At the same time, I really follow Gary Marcus from the USA, and he really is warning us that we will have a bubble, and that not every LLM supplier can be profitable in the end, maybe one, and even that is not very likely. So how do we keep up this investment-like attitude while at the same time realizing that maybe something is going to burst?
Anyone want to have an answer on that?
Or maybe I can say something. But
yeah,
I just want to point out that when I've heard this story that when the rail tracks were laid down, something very similar happened, and I think it always happens like this. So when a new technology appears, there's always a huge amount of overinvestment, and so then at some point there's a time when there's some bleeding and companies will sort of go bankrupt, but then what's left is the actual rail track system, right? And so I think this dynamic is kind of predictable in a way. In the US, they're building now the future infrastructure for compute, the data centers. And so even though there will be a correction, and the question is, of course, how big is that correction, and does it come together with all sorts of other geopolitical issues, we will have to work through that correction, I think, but then there is data centers that are the foundation for the future economy. Now, I think as a startup, it's actually very tricky to maneuver because our competition in the US has much more investment than we do, in the order of 3-4 times more, and Anthropic and those companies have 10-20 times more, and they're going after the same business at some point, right? So how do you defend? You can either try to get yourself a huge amount of investment, which is actually possible, but then of course you will also have to, at some point, have the revenue to pair, with that. And so that's kind of the balance you will have to make. And I don't know if there's a recipe for it, but we're not going to go crazy on the amount of investment, but we're also not going to be so small that we get very vulnerable in a way.
Okay, beware for correction. Other questions? That side of the story. No questions there. Come on, otherwise I'll give some. Yeah, oh. Can I throw the mic?
Yeah. Thanks. Maybe a question to everyone involved in policy. I think that in the Netherlands we're pretty good at setting up initiatives, creating lots of fragmented initiatives. So what's your view on that, and how can we maybe increase our speed by making sure that we focus on the ones that actually can make impact?
Yeah, so I totally agree. If you look at the national technology strategy, then you think, okay, 10 priorities is just 10 priorities, but yeah, it's still 10 separate priorities, 10 silos, a semicon agenda, a quantum agenda, a photonics agenda, AI agenda. So I think we should look how to break those barriers between those silos and have a more, as I said before, holistic view. And then I think policy agendas can help to make choices where to put the money and the budget. But yeah, we should not, I think also more bottom up initiatives like the AI Delta Plan also help to sharpen policy, and we should not forget that and have that also combined in a more broader view on what to do in innovation in the Netherlands.
Okay, next question. I do two questions, two last questions. The same. I give to someone else. Sorry, then you get the second one.
Yes, hi. I want to ask a question about kind of the future. I don't know if you heard about the company called Ineffable Intelligence, a London-based company that raised quite a lot of money just based on a assumption where they want AI to learn everything from scratch that human history has learned until now. And if they are successful with this approach, where do you think these current AI companies will, what will they do, or will they be able to succeed?
Max, it seems like a question for you, but maybe someone else that wants to answer this.
I don't know this one, but I think it is a perfect example of what VCs want to invest, at least the US Silicon Valley VC. So they want to invest in something that has a very small chance of being successful, but when you are successful, it has an absolutely massive impact. That's somehow the dynamics. And if you, as startups, of course, they learn that signal. And I'm pretty sure this one is really ambitious, and it's probably overly ambitious stated. So I think the dynamics, what will happen is they'll figure out, okay, that was a little bit too much. We need to pivot. And then they do good stuff, and with this good stuff, they build a business. I think that's typically, when the reality kicks in, you figure out, okay, how am I actually going to make money on this? And then they pivot a bit in a direction where they can actually make money. And that's apparently the dynamics, and I think we should adapt to it in a way.
Last two questions, I'll give it done, and then there, and because
we're looking a lot at the government in the Netherlands to help us join the AI race. History has learned us that the Netherlands is notoriously slow when it comes to technological innovation. I think it took 200 years before we accepted the industrial revolution. Do we have a plan B where instead of the government we rely on VCs or industry or pension money, or because I'm afraid that we will not make a lot of speed.
Well, there is a way to talk to the government whilst not telling the government to spend money. And that's one of the things that we try to do, which we just try to bring into sight plans like using pension funds, like I don't know, like talking to all the different initiatives that are there. I was talking over lunch that there are so many European initiatives, and then you talk to civil servants or other people and they have no clue that these European initiatives are actually there, or they're even underused. So there is actually a way to not make the government spend or choose winners. That's we don't want to do that. But yeah, sort of shape policy in a way that the whole ecosystem benefits from it.
Maybe Liz, have you a reaction to that question, or?
Yeah, I think we're definitely not saying here that the government should try to accelerate this whole transition. I think it are all the ingredients that come into play to make sure that we get there. When without private investors or without VC funding, the government cannot even play because we always need to co-invest. So I would see the government as a catalyst to get funding to risky areas where other private investors are at the moment still hesitant to invest in, but with a little government support, maybe they do cross that bridge to do so. And actually, I think looking at the US, the government is also playing a huge role now within driving these transitions, and that is needed because also there, most of the investors were very much well known with the SaaS investments, and all of a sudden they're talking about quantum, they're talking about semicon, stuff that they haven't had a lot of experience with yet. So even there you see the government come into play and also act as a catalyst. So it will be interesting to see how that will influence the role. But yeah, I think you know very well from Singapore that model has also worked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I do the final short question with a short answer. Preferably a question with a yes or no answer, because then I'll give the 4 panelists a yes or no answer. Have anybody a yes or no question? Yes, a yes or no question. Okay, cool.
Are we safe with all the advancements in the AI world?
Yeah.
Are we safe?
Yes or no?
Yes, I'm optimistic. Yeah.
Me too. I'm worried, but we need to do more.
I'm worried about humans with AI.
Okay. I want to thank all the panel. Maybe a big round of applause because we are. And now the most important stuff. We end with the most important stuff. Arian is on the other Arian there. We end this, but now the drinks, and there where you really meet people and you can more have an in-depth discussion. So do that, because talking to each other is still very important. Arian, you will finish up.
Just really by thanking everyone for being here. It's been a long session, but huge amount of insights, hopefully, and there's a bit of time to chat afterwards. So thanks for coming, and get in touch. All right, bye-bye.